Plug in, log on, let's break it down. Truth ain't scared to be found. Dogma shakes when questions rise. No more fear, no more lies. Cyber deconstruction, let's get real. Faith when challenge starts to peel. If it's built on solid ground, why is it scared to stick around? Sacred text, twisted views. Time to separate lies from truth. Not here to burn, but here to see what survives when the mind breaks free. Deconstruct, analyze, open hearts, open eyes. If it falls, let it be. What remains is meant to be. Cyber deconstruction, let's get real. Faith when challenge starts to peel. If it's built on solid ground, why is it scared to stick around? Not for hate, but for the wise. Truth won't shatter, only lies. Time to start the conversation. Now ain't the time to pretend nothing happened.
Welcome in, everybody. How is everybody doing? Let's make sure everything's going well. Make sure, am I good on TikTok? Am I good on YouTube? Just making sure everything's good. Gonna go ahead and get my co-host for tonight brought up. It is the one and only Dark Knight. If you're not following him, make sure you are following him. We're going to get him brought on up. Hey, how are you doing, Knight?
So far, so good. Do I have any background noise?
There's a little bit, but it's not too crazy, I don't think.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Thank you
yeah,
for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, not a problem. I apologize. I read that message the other day, and I was thinking, oh, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time? We're good. So I was expecting like another hour, and then you messaged me like, bro, I'm not seeing you. And I'm like, oh no. And then I re-looked. I'm like, oh no, that's my bad. I misread that.
No, you're good, bro.
So,
No
but
problem.
we are good. We are good. I have taken the last few days. I've been kind of feeling under the weather. So I did take the last few days off, but we are good. I'll probably be live again tomorrow night as well to make up for those lost nights. It's echoey.
Yes, I was gonna say it is echoey.
All right, let me take a look at this real quick, and we'll. Oh, I see why. Okay, so we are. I was going to try to use my soundboard again, but it looks like that might be the issue, so we're just not going to use the soundboard. Which is fine with me. It's fine with me, but hopefully that fixed. Hopefully
Yeah, way
that
better.
fixed the echo. Yeah, it was the soundboard that I was trying to use, but we'll be fine. I got that gone.
Oh yeah. How's your day been, man?
It's been good. It has been good. I do cosplay. So me and my partner, we have a convention coming up. It's like a retro convention. And so we're looking at cosplays. I think we're looking at Attack on Titan. I think we're going to look at doing an Attack on Titan cosplay.
Okay, okay. I didn't know you were into AOT like that. Okay.
Yeah. I love Attack on Titan. I think Attack on Titan, especially being Jewish, when you watch Attack on Titan, especially you get into the later seasons, I don't want to ruin it for people who haven't seen it, but when you get into the later seasons, you can kind of see some parallels there. We can draw those parallels to what's going on as far as the Jewish people and Nazis, as far as what's going on with Israel. Like there's so many different parallels that can be drawn there that I find it fascinating.
Oh yeah. Then you gotta like my background then, right? The one I use for my streams.
I do.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm
So
hoping
yeah,
that we can... Go ahead,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and real quick, for those that are on YouTube, do you want to go ahead and plug yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so on YouTube, I just go by Dark Knight. It's NYT, capital N. And basically, I just upload clips of debates that I have with people on TikTok. And I also create videos that are aimed towards specific topics regarding the Bible. So if there's some problematic verses that we can talk about, or even just focus on some of like the I guess like the modern day Christian debaters who might present certain points that Christians find to be compelling. It's like we can go through those arguments and provide a refutation, or even have some dialogue with some other content creators who happen to be Christians. Maybe not like a debate, but maybe just like a discussion sometime. So that's kind of where I'm going with my channel.
Yep. And what topics have you been running lately? Because the way you run your topics, I actually enjoy the way you run your topics. So what are some of the topics you've been running lately?
So the ones that I run are the ones that welcome me up from just kind of real like I guess they help me realize the flaws within Christianity. So it's kind of similar to what you do here. It's just like exposing the character of the God of the Bible, and just comparing uh, different verses to see whether or not he fits the bill. So if somebody says God is good, it's like, okay, what does good mean? And we define what good is, and then we figure out whether or not God is a good God based off of their own standard. And so just things like that help me come out of Christianity. I focus, tend to focus more on those topics just because it's near and dear to my passion. So
Yeah, and one of the topics that you run that I really enjoy, just because of the way that it's worded, is why do you justify atrocities? And it's amazing at how people, like, they'll be like, I don't at all, and you'll bring up things like slavery and other things, and they'll be like, yeah, I'm 100% against it, except when it applies to God. And then suddenly, what do they do at night? What do they do immediately after?
they justify the atrocity.
They justify the atrocities. And that topic, I love the way you word that. But we'll go ahead and get moved on to this first guest. It is Nate's. Can I get your age? Let me invite them to unmute.
I'm really old, so we'll just go with that. Anyway, so you say God is a sick monster, so you...
Yeah, can I get your age real quick?
Yeah, old.
You sound like a fetus.
Okay, I'm really old.
Okay. So yeah, why is God a sick fuck?
So you, by that statement, you agree that God exists.
No, I believe that when I read the book and God is portrayed in the book is a sick monster.
Okay.
Yeah, for example,
So,
in NAS, do you know about Harry Potter?
sure.
Do you know who Voldemort is?
Yeah.
What do you think about Voldemort?
I think he's, you know, a representation of the subconscious, dark side.
Is he a good person or a bad person?
I don't know too much about him actually. I just know that he represents the shadow.
Okay.
So the
Well,
shadow can be good.
okay, so you view him as a bad person. Does Voldemort exist?
Uh, Fictional character.
Exactly. So you can give your criticism about a fictional character in the same way we can give a criticism about your fictional character. That's all. Go ahead, Cyber.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So that. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, from arguing from the Abrahamic point of view that God exists, um, I would say that I would justify all the things that God did because you can't see the things God did from God's point of view. You can only see it from your point of view. You live in this world now where you are super cushy. You order food online, it comes to you. You don't have to get up and go hunt it. Nothing bad really happens. The most thing that happens is, oh, I have to we're in a recession. I have to tighten my belt a little bit and cut down on my frivolous
Well, real quick,
spending.
I don't know how old you think Knight and I are, but I remember when there wasn't internet and you could only be on the internet or on your phone on a landline because cell phones weren't a thing. Like just to give you an idea of age.
So
Yeah, and I
uh,
grew up in the ghetto, man. I grew up in poverty where roaches were in my cereal, and I didn't know if I was gonna have another meal to eat the next day. So I have no idea what you're talking about. You're making
Hmm.
it seem like you didn't go through anything, but it's quite embarrassing. You don't even know anything about us.
I know enough
Yeah.
about you. My statement still stands. Did you ever have to go hunt, like to eat? Did you ever have to risk your
Yeah,
life
I've been
to
hunting,
kill a
but my
wild
my
boar to eat?
but my question for you is though, is are you suggesting that like God's ways are higher?
Well, I would suggest that God, as an omniscient being, would
Hmm.
know absolutely what's better than you would. So
Yeah,
his
so
God's
God's
morality
well,
would
hold on,
be
hold on. Let's build on that real quick. So God's ways are higher. He's an omniscient being, so we just don't see things from his perspective, correct?
right.
Right. So what you've just done is you've put yourself in a vat. So essentially what that means is because God's ways are higher and we just can't understand him, it could be the case that the Bible is a lie and that God is just lying to you, that God is actually evil, but he has you convinced that he's good because his ways are higher.
Then that wouldn't fit the definition of a God then, because
No, but you don't
God
know
is.
that because his ways are higher and he's just been lying to you. So because
I
he's
could
been
be a
lying to
fly
you,
buzzing on a wall right now. I don't know if I'm
yeah,
not a
you
fly
could be,
buzzing
and
on a
God just
wall.
has you. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. God has you convinced that you are living within this reality, but you're not. You are literally just a brain in a vat.
Yeah, but that's not what God. Like, if there was a
Yeah,
God
prove
and
it.
you wanted us to,
Prove it. His ways are
would
higher, and you just don't understand his ways because he's omniscient and you're not.
so even if the God is like a trickster, as you say, and he, but the definition of God is that he's the creator of the universe, right? So God knows what's better than
Mhm.
us. So
Well, no, no, no. You
even if
can't
he
say
does,
he. Hold on. You can't say he knows better. You don't know that. You can't know that because his ways are higher and he's omniscient and he just knows things that you don't know. So it could be the case that you are literally just a brain in a vat.
Yeah,
And this reality is just something he's giving you. He's lying to you about everything.
so
exactly.
God
In fact, you.
created this reality.
Huh?
So God created this reality.
That's a
Yeah,
claim,
but
you know.
you. Yeah, but you're literally
Well, that is the
just a
claim.
brain in a vat. I don't exist. Night doesn't exist. Nobody exists but you in a vat. And you wouldn't know any better because God's ways are higher. Do you see how silly it is when you start making that argument? You literally put yourself into a vat. And you can't
No,
trust
because
anything the book says.
no, that actually doesn't make sense.
Why not?
Well,
Because
innate. how about this? If you read a claim in the Bible that says that his ways are higher than ours, how would you be able to test that claim? Because all you're reading is just words on a book. How do you
You
actually
could
know that claim is true?
you could look at history and derive, what we've come to from what is in the book. So basically, the book tells us to love one another. That's the overall
No, that's
message.
that's not what I asked you though. I asked you specifically, how
Yeah,
did
I'm trying
you
to I'm trying to
how
I'm
did you
trying to
come to the
explain that.
conclusion?
Why do you stop me when I'm
Hold
trying to
on, hold
explain it?
on, because you're not answering the question
I
directly.
am.
You're
You're just
you're
not
kind
giving
of
me the chance
fluffing it
to.
up.
I'm not
Please
using the
stop
words you
talking.
want me to use.
I'm gonna ask my question again, and you could give an answer. So, how would you be able to test whether or not God's ways are higher than ours?
Okay, now are you gonna allow me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you can do, as I was trying to say, I'm going back to the same thing I was going to say before. You can derive from what we had before to what we have now, that it was based on the words of the book. So religion has taken over the world. Everybody's religious. It's ingrained into society, whereas before we were harmful to each other in crazy ways that we don't comprehend now. And now we are less harmful to each other because the book tells us to love one another, and we've been
Well,
doing
that's
that,
not
and
true.
we've ingrained it into the societal contract. So
No, that.
now
Well,
you don't
hold on,
want.
hold on. So let me give you a pushback against this. What are your views on slavery?
Um, I mean, it was probably necessary before. I don't think it's a
It's
good thing now.
Slavery was necessary
Probably it was probably a good thing
because you realize that
at some
God
point.
commands slavery, right? Are you aware God commands slavery?
Yeah, in the book, yeah.
Yeah. And you
Right.
believe that slavery was a necessary thing. Why was it necessary?
Well, it was probably beneficial to help to create society. It probably I'm going to use that argument that society that slavery wasn't then what we think it is now. Like modern slavery, like the slavery that was in America wasn't very nice. But
Neither was this
um,
slavery. So this
Yeah.
slavery here, if we go read in Exodus 21, um, 20 through 21, it says, when the slave owner strikes a male or female slave with a rod and the slave dies immediately, the owner shall be punished. And we learned later on in Exodus 21, earlier on, we learned that that punishment would be unalivement. But verse 21 is the important part. But if the slave survives a day or two, there is no punishment, for the slave is the owner's property. So, what
yeah,
can you tell me what the
so
distinct difference between chattel slavery of the transatlantic slave trade and the chattel slavery as told about in the Bible? What's the symmetry breaker?
time, it's just time. You probably
Oh,
That's not what I mean by
I mean,
symmetry breaker.
yeah,
well,
that's not
they integrated slaves into society back then. Like,
that's not even what I
There's no
you had
evidence of
slaves
that.
like there is. They had slaves for what, like 5 years, and they integrated them into society.
innate. Do
You
you
would capture slaves by going to war. You would
innate?
take
Do
the
you even
children. You
know?
would bring them. You would bring
Innate.
them
Do you
over
even
and
know what
integrate them
chattel
into your
slavery
society.
is? Do you know what chattel
Yeah,
slavery is?
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Can you define chattel slavery for all of us here?
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm
Oh, you don't want to?
communicating with you. Yeah, I don't like to do
I,
that.
I
I
I
hate when
just
people are
don't
like,
think you know.
I'm
I
gonna
don't
I'm
think
gonna
you.
I'm gonna trip you up on this word. So you
No,
define
no.
this word
Well, hold on.
in the middle of a conversation. How are you going to ask me to define a
I
word?
think no. So I'm
That's
responding to what you said
disingenuous.
earlier. You said that there's
Mm-hmm.
a difference between modern day slavery in America compared to the slavery in the Bible. So I just want you to define what is chattel slavery. It's as simple as that. It's a simple question.
Yeah, but you're not gonna. I'm not gonna sit here and do this. We're gonna in the middle of a conversation start asking you to define what words is. When you start getting tripped up, you'll start
Well, no, no, no,
telling
no.
people to
Hold on, hold on,
define
hold on,
words.
hold on. You stated that the slavery of the Bible is not the same slavery that we would know about, right? And
Right.
it's important because chattel slavery is chattel
But
slavery.
who
It
said?
doesn't
But who
matter
said the word
if it.
chattel slavery? Why does that word matter at all? Did I say chattel slavery in my conversation at some point?
Yeah, because that's the type of slavery that we know of.
But I said,
when we
but I said that word.
listen. When we speak of the transatlantic slave trade, we mention chattel slavery, right? Now, in order to understand, to know that there's a difference, you who made that claim would need to point out what the difference is. And when I asked you
That's
what
what I
the
was
difference
doing.
was, well, no, you just said time. And then when I point out that chattel slavery is still chattel slavery, what's a symmetry breaker? What's the difference? And Knight,
Well,
real quick, do
that's
you just want to
when-
give him a definition of chattel slavery real quick?
No, hold it. That's when Dark Knight asked me to define what chattel slavery is.
I'll give
When I
you a
never said the word,
definition
I
since you
said,
can't define it. Yeah, so
Right,
it's
go
a
ahead,
form
Knight.
of slavery where humans are treated as property. That's we can just use a layman's definition.
Yep. I sent you an invite to unmute.
Yeah, I know. My argument was I never used the word chattel slavery, and Dark Knight stopped me in the middle of what I was saying and was like, "Can you define what chattel slavery is?" Even though I never used the word. Okay.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
disingenuous. So you were trying to trip me up with words, and I called you on it. And then
No,
you had to go back
we're
and be
not-
like,
no.
"It's exactly what you tried to do."
No.
Innate, please listen. Lock in for
100%.
one.
I watch you guys do
Innate,
this
please
all
lock
the
in
time.
for 1 second.
You
I'm
think-
gonna try to
Listen to me.
make this clear for you.
Why
one more
can't I
time.
talk? Why can't I talk?
Go
Why
ahead.
can't I talk?
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay.
I'm done.
You
with
guys
it.
do this all the time. It's a very
Yeah, so Nate, we are letting you speak, right? But when you state that the chattel slavery of today, the slavery of today is not the same as biblical slavery, and when I ask you what is the difference and all you say is time, that's the difference, then we have to talk about, well, the slavery when we talk about it in modern day, right, especially with the transatlantic slave trade, we are talking about chattel slavery. And we need to mention that because chattel slavery is the exact same kind of slavery that was practiced, that God allowed and God commanded. Do you understand why we brought it up?
Look, you don't need to ask me to define what words are because that distracts me.
You do need to define words. You do need to define words. Words have meaning, and we need to define
If I
them.
use a word, you can ask me to define it. If you don't understand the word, don't say a word and then ask me to define the word that you used. It's a disingenuous argument because I was making a statement and then Dark Knight stopped me in the middle of my statement. He's like,
How
"Do
was
you know
a
what
question an
define
argument?
chattel slavery?"
Yeah, a question is not an
not an
argument.
I wasn't asking a question. I was making a statement.
Do you know why?
And in the middle of my statement, Dark Knight stopped me and asked me to define.
I got
slavery.
it. Do you know
I
why?
never used the word.
Hold on. Do you know why we asked you to define chattel slavery? Do you know why we asked you that?
Quit unmuting me. It's getting annoying. I do know why, and I'm telling you, it's because you guys do this all the time. You try to trip people up when they're making a point. You're like, hold on, stop making your point. Let's distract from that by using certain words, usually like jargon, terms of art, to try to throw people off of their point. And it's
it's
really
because
way to debate.
it's because chattel
Nobody
slavery.
used the word chattel.
I did. We did.
No,
You
I
said-
didn't. I
you-
was,
hold
I,
on,
I
hold
said,
on.
I said modern slavery.
Correct. And what's modern slavery called?
Why do I have to call it chattel? Why do I have to do that? I don't have to do
No,
that.
no.
defined
You
it
don't.
as
I never.
modern
Hold on.
slavery.
Hold on.
The word
Hold
chattel
on. Hold on.
doesn't matter.
Listen. I never said you did. We are defining it as chattel slavery. We're defining it as such.
But it's
Yeah,
distracting from the point.
do you
I'm making a point, and
disagree?
you're trying to say.
And
So what
do you
is chattel
disagree
slavery?
that modern day slavery is chattel slavery?
Why are you stuck on that word?
Because you
I'm
keep
comparing.
you keep
I'm
bringing it up.
I'm comparing modern day slavery to ancient slavery. Why does chattel matter at all? Why does that word make any difference in my argument?
Okay.
Answer
Okay.
that.
Let's hold on. Let's drop it. Then, if you want to drop it, then what's the difference between biblical slavery and your term of modern day slavery? What's the difference?
Okay. And I started answering that by saying time. Time is the major difference. And now let me finish that.
Okay, go ahead.
Times were different back then. The societal contract didn't exist back then. It does now. So back then, things made everything made a big difference. The smallest action made the hugest difference. Life and death were at stake at all times, all day. Now it's not. So now when we do, if we now that we know slavery is, we see it as bad. We still have forms of modern day slavery, but it's not the same as it was back then, because our societal contract has changed. The agreement that we have with each other to behave in society is different now than it was back then. Back then, you needed to be harsher with people because your life was at stake. You don't need to now. It's not like that now. So, slavery has changed. So we don't need the slavery now that they perhaps needed back then.
Hold on. Did you know that there were ancient societies that did not practice slavery, right? You're aware of that?
Sure, probably.
Yeah, so the idea that like it was needed to like bolster is just wrong, and you're forgetting these are commandments that come from God, right? So God, who is all knowing, right? All knowing, all powerful, and all loving, this God commanded the ownership of people, going as far as to say that you could beat the absolute sonic rings out of them as long as they survived at least 48 hours.
Yeah. So what societies didn't have slaves?
Wait, say that again?
What societies didn't have slaves?
The old kingdom of Egypt did not practice slavery. Yeah, so when we go look at this, we'll look at, and I can bring up sources here if you need. And Knight, can you say something real quick? I don't know if TikTok cut out again. Can you say something, Knight?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Ah, man, it does this thing where it likes TikTok for some reason likes to go quiet on people for some reason. It is super annoying. No. The old kingdom of Egypt did not practice slavery. The old kingdom, right?
And that old kingdom didn't survive, did it?
Yep. Wait, say that again?
The old kingdom didn't survive, did it?
Yeah. So I can't swipe the app. I'm on my laptop. And when we look at the Persian of the Achaemenid Empire, they did not practice it. When we look at China, when it was under Confucianism, it did not practice slavery. So when we look at other things, slavery was not practiced.
Persia, Egypt, China, they all had slaves.
No, we're talking about certain empires that did not practice it because their religions forbade it. But this was pre-Judaism, pre-biblical times.
So the empires that got wiped out didn't have slaves.
Huh? No, the Old Kingdom didn't get wiped out. The Old Kingdom, when it swapped over into the New Kingdom much later, they did practice slavery. They did at the time. When we look at the Achaemenid, I'm going to mispronounce Achaemenid Empire, because of the religion that they practice that predates Judaism or Yahwehism. It didn't practice slavery because the religion forbade it.
So now I'm going to ask you, because you used a certain word, I'm going to ask you to technically define the word swap out. What do you mean when you say swap out?
With the
Somebody just came in there and be like, well, hey, we're just going to change the empire now. Let's start having slaves. Like, how does swap out in a kingdom work? Do you mean destroyed and then made anew with a different kingdom? Is that what you mean? You mean wiped out, and then a new kingdom arose in its place?
No. What does so especially what happened is with the New Kingdom, the Hyksos, which did not practice slavery, they were expelled from Egypt, from Lower Egypt, by Hosmos I. And so when they were exiled and expelled out from Egypt, the people that replaced them did practice slavery. So the Hyksos did not practice slavery.
So that's another way of saying they were wiped out.
Huh?
So that's another way of saying they were wiped out.
I mean, they were. Well, hold on. They were pushed out.
You're pussyfooting around it. You're like swapped out.
Well, correct, but this still doesn't change. Hold on. This still doesn't change the fact. This still doesn't change the fact that not all kingdoms practice slavery.
Yeah, and what happened to those kingdoms? All of them got wiped out.
All kingdoms have eventually been wiped out.
And Nate, this is a bad argument, man.
Why?
Yeah.
That's a bad argument.
Because
I'm arguing for the necessity of slavery.
So we gave you an example of a specific nation that didn't practice slavery, and you're like, well, they were wiped out for not practicing slavery, and your argument is that slavery is necessary, but why would it be necessary for an all-powerful God? How about you answer that question?
Yeah, hold on. I do need to do a quick let me check here. I'm probably going to need to do a quick restart on TikTok cuz unfortunately it is doing the bad audio thing. So I'm going to do a quick restart on TikTok. You're both more than welcome. Well, Nate will come back, but Nate, you're more than welcome to come back. I will be right back. Come back in like 30 seconds and I'll be right back. So while we are waiting for that restart, I have kicked it off. Go ahead, keep tapping the screen, sharing the live. And if you are on YouTube, feel free to come on over to TikTok and talk, or you can hop in the link. I would love to chat with you in the link as well. And hopefully we'll get this audio fixed. I don't know why TikTok does that from time to time. It's weird that it does that. It's annoying that it does that. Hello, Hanji.
Testing. 1 2 1 2.
Yep, you're good. You're good. We're just gonna wait for Knight to come back. And what he's not understanding is that his idea is that, like, there weren't any social contracts, but we do have cases in which ancient civilizations didn't practice slavery, so it just destroys
It
that.
was very common in Lower Egypt, but not Upper Egypt. Not so much.
Correct. Welcome back, Knight. I apologize. I don't. It's a thing. It's a thing with OBS where every now and then the audio on TikTok gets super quiet.
It's all good, no problem.
I hear you better now.
Perfect.
So, get this guest brought up. So, Chuck and Little, I will bring you up in just a moment. I'm going to give that other guest a chance to come back first. So give him a minute or two to get back. Hello, Peachy. How are you doing? All right. He's not back. We're going to go ahead and move on. Right. Go ahead, Hanji.
Hello?
Oh, yeah. Can I get your age?
I'm 22.
All right. And why is God a sick monster?
I don't believe God is a sick monster. I believe that God bestowed humans with the power of free will, or the power of God's will and word. And
Sorry, I was dealing with kiddo.
oh, all right. Well,
No, you're good.
am I free to go? Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And I believe that He has allowed atrocity in this world to enact, whether people will act in a place of fear or in a place of righteousness, whether
So
they are
let me-
going to allow things. Okay.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question then. So do you believe that free will started with Adam and Eve?
Yeah, I believe that free will was their spiritual awakening. Yes.
Okay, now did God already know before he even created them? Did God know that they were going to partake of the fruit?
I mean, it could be said that God knows all, but
Yeah.
I believe that God is with creation as a baby is with life because he enthralled. He allowed the three different entities, being Adam, Eve, and the serpent, in the same place to sort of see what would happen. Rather that he did not know, he wanted to put on display what could have happened, what temptation, where it leads humans.
But you believe God is all knowing, right?
I do believe he is all knowing, but I
Okay.
also do believe that with creation there is an act of free will, therefore it is not a calculated thing. It's not a string theory thing. The world has its own actions. That's why there
So
is such thing as the serpent in the world.
so my question is though, being all knowing, could Adam and Eve or even the serpent, could they have made any decision other than what God had already seen?
Yes. He does not have full string theory connection to what is displayed into the world, especially the material, which is the serpent's world, aka Satan's world. That's why he was brought down with the entities of Adam and Eve, because he is the ruler of said material.
Oh, so hold on. What about when in Acts, right? In Acts, they're getting ready to replace Judas, and they are explaining that the sole purpose of Judas was to fulfill a prophecy that says that the Messiah would be betrayed. They say that's the sole purpose that Judas fulfilled. That's what his job was, right? Um,
Yep.
so I would say that that flies in the face of free will.
Well, in a sense, yes, but Judas was he was most of the apostles, especially Judas, like they were meant in to have a purpose in what Jesus's mission, true mission was. Jesus was
So
meant
Judas
to
didn't
be
have free
betrayed.
will? So Judas didn't
Uh,
have free will.
yes, no, of course he did. Of course Judas had free will, but because of his place in Jesus's life, he was a part of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ for our sins. Jesus
So
was meant to be betrayed.
so could Judas have chosen to do otherwise than betray Christ? I
Of
want you to think
course,
about
but he
what
was.
you've been saying. I want you hold
Yeah,
on. I want you to think about what
I
you're
am
saying.
thinking about. I am thinking about what I'm saying. You are not fully grasping what I am saying, and that's your issue.
No, I am. What you're trying to do is you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. What you're trying to do is you're
Hmm.
trying to say, because I point out a clear contradiction in your worldview, and now what you're
Well,
trying to say
no, I
is,
wouldn't say
well,
contradiction.
Judas
You just.
Judas
Whoa, whoa,
did
whoa, whoa.
create. God was create, or sorry, Judas was created for the purpose of betraying Christ. But no, he still had his free will to not do that.
Well,
Do you see the
in the story,
contradiction?
his. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess, but you people take the Bible for face value. You don't actually fully understand it,
We
so you're
do.
gonna take
Words mean
things for
words.
no. No, yeah, but also there's parables and metaphors and things that are enacted to sort of give the Bible its own timeline. Time is a different thing in the Bible, and parables and metaphors add to what meaning can be fully. So it's hard when you just look at the Bible for its face value, and what is said because it can mean more than what you believe. Because you don't open up your heart to the Bible, you read it like a book. So you're not going to be fully encapsulated by the overall lesson of things. You have to understand that Judas is a metaphor for what we did to God as a
Oh, wait,
whole.
wait, wait,
We
hold on,
betrayed.
hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. So Judas never betrayed Jesus.
No,
Okay, so
he did.
Judas did betray Jesus. So let's put aside the Judas is a metaphor for us because we're talking about the actual Judas, right? We're not talking about the metaphorical Judas because a metaphorical
Mhm.
Judas means that Judas didn't exist, right? So did the
No, I was
physical
saying that
Judas
in the story of
did
Jesus,
hold on, did the
you're
physical
not
Judas
understanding what I'm
betray?
saying. You're not
I do, and I'm not
No,
letting
you're
you
taking it
say
for
the
face
bullshit that you're
value.
trying to say.
No, no,
You're
because
just
no,
saying
you're
a
on
bunch of
bullshit.
words and they have no connection to the
Oh no,
conversation.
they
You're
actually
just
do.
pulling
You just
things out of
don't
your ass
understand
at
the
this point.
Bible at all. You guys are 100 IQ atheists who don't take any actual enlightenment to the world and you live in the flesh and temptation.
First of all, we're not going to do preaching. Second of all, when host is trying to address something, you let host speak. Third of all, not everyone up here is atheist. We are reading the text as the text says, and you are adding your own interpretation, which is blasphemous against your God.
I am not.
So with that being said,
blasphemous. You are blasphemous.
I don't give a shit. Jesus never existed. So with that being said, let host get his point out.
So yeah, so we have a case where Judas is prophesied to betray Jesus. Right now, I know you're going to try to pivot to a metaphorical Judas. I don't care about the metaphorical Judas, right? Because that is something that comes post hoc. That's something that we look at that afterwards and we go, "Oh, that's us." We're talking about the physical Judas that physically betrayed Jesus. Now, did he have a choice to decide not to betray Jesus? Did Peter, after being told that he was going to deny Jesus, did Peter have a choice to choose to not betray Jesus?
Yes, they both did, and they both chose to do it. They both chose. Judas chose monetary over Jesus. He chose to accept the money that he was given to hand over Jesus to the Roman guards, because he wanted to be up in that certain moment rather than see it through a full perspective, through why Jesus was the Messiah, why he was being thrown away by the people of Israel and stuff. And to say that Judas, I wasn't saying that Judas was a metaphor or a metaphorical.
You quite literally did. I'll clip it later.
You don't understand what I'm saying. I did not say that. I was saying that he was a metaphor for humanity in the story of Jesus, not that he is a metaphor himself. He was a real person, yes. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the story through a whole, Judas is us. He is temptation. He took away what he had with the gift of Jesus in his life for monetary, which you can say people do every day.
So let me get this straight then, right? So through these examples, you're saying that even if God has already seen us doing something, we still have the ability to do other than because of free will, correct?
Yes.
Oh, well, this is going to give you a whole other problem. So we have cases where, huh?
Nothing, sorry.
Yeah, because this is going to give you a whole other set of problems. If you hold that an all-knowing God, that we can do something other than what the all-knowing God has already seen us doing, then we're going to show you where God takes away people's free will by saying we're going to do something to these people because this is what they will do, but they're unalived before this can even happen. Thus, God doesn't support what you're saying. Are you familiar with Deuteronomy chapter 20?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, so where we're going to go is we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 20. And let me open up this window real quick. And where we're going to go here is, so essentially here, starting in verse 10, we get where God commands slavery. But that's not where we're going to talk about. Where we're actually going to go is down here to verse 16. Starting in verse 16, all the way through, it says, "But as for the towns of these people that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, you must not let anything that breathes remain alive." Right? So we're having complete genocides of these people. Indeed, you shall annihilate them. The Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, just as the Lord your God has commanded. Now, why is this? So that they may not teach you to do all the abhorrent things that they do for their gods, and you thus sin against the Lord your God. So the issue that we have here is, so this is in Deuteronomy We have it right before they're entering the promised land, last set of law. We have two issues here that go against with what you are trying to say. God is saying that, one, these people need to be annihilated because they're going to attempt to teach the Israelites the abhorrent things that they do. Now, it could be the case that they choose not to do that. They just leave the Israelites alone. That could be a case. But two is the idea that, and you thus sin against the Lord your God, meaning that God is saying, because I have already seen that you guys are going to take their teachings and you're going to absorb their teachings, that you will sin against me because of their teachings. So these here, with these groups of people, again, this is, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 different peoples. Now, Knight, something that's important here too, right? Because this is before Samuel. Notice in this list, notice how the Amalekites, they're not in this list. Important, the Amalekites are not in this list. But we have where God doesn't support what you're saying. God is saying they must be annihilated because I have already seen that they will do this. Thus, it's going to happen. They don't have the free will to do other than.
Well, yeah, because these nations were aware of God's existence, and they were also aware of their own God's existence. Therefore, they were going against God's will. And
do you have any
following
evidence
false
of the
gods.
Hittites? Hold on. Do you have any evidence of the Hittites,
I
the
know
Amorites,
I know the Canaanites were
Perizzites?
sacrificing babies and killing
You asked
and
me about the
sacrificing people and
Hittites,
stuff
so-
in society.
Oh, I'm
I
not
know
talking
about
about the
Canaanites.
Canaanites. I'm not talking
Well,
about
they're
the
all
Canaanites.
under the same. They all fell into the same punishment. So therefore, were they not all under the same will?
No, they're completely different groups of people. In fact, they're in completely different locations.
Okay, what does that have to do with anything? Clearly,
Yeah, so
they were objecting God's will to follow false gods and worship false gods, to receive monetary things of value that were only good in the material.
That's not why they're. Hold on, let's go read it again. That's not why God wants them annihilated, because there's other peoples that were doing the same
It
thing, that
says
were
that they
worshiping
worship
other
other
gods.
gods. Therefore, they are worshiping false gods.
And Chuck, and just because, okay, so I just want to make this as clear as possible. So you're saying the same punishment was given to all these people because they all committed the same sin, correct?
Mm-hmm.
It says, so that they may not teach you to do all abhorrent things that they do under their gods, different gods. They are aware of the God, the one, and then they are aware of false material world gods. So they are enacting against the will of the all, of the one. So yeah, they got punished for
That's
that.
not true.
What does
These people had their own deities. Your God
Yeah,
was
they-
just jealous. He even tells you that in
those are
scripture.
deities are false gods.
Well, hold on. Listen. They're not being punished.
God created.
Right? Hold
God
on.
created
Listen.
deities.
They're not being punished because they worship false deities. There's other people that worship false deities that God ignores. Right? God doesn't care. The reason why they are annihilated, and I highlighted it, so that they may not teach you. God has said, these guys, even though they worship these false gods, they're going to teach you to worship their gods. And then down here it says, and you are going to accept their teaching, which will cause you to sin against me, right? So that's what they're being punished for. It's not because they worship other deities. That's not the reasoning why.
Come on.
It's because
Even
God...
you know you're wrong.
Huh?
Even you know you're wrong. Come on.
Yeah, can you
So-
hold on, can you show me where it says it's because they worship other gods?
It's-
Where does it say that in here?
That they do for their gods. You do all
No.
abhorrent things that they
Read.
do for their
Hold on.
gods, and thus
Read
sin
before.
against the
No.
Lord your
Read
God.
before that though. Read before that. He
So
tells
that
us
they may not
about
teach
the.
you
Yeah,
to do all
that's what
abhorrent
he
things
doesn't
that
want
they
them to
for their
do.
gods.
He doesn't want
Yes,
them
because it's
teaching the
false worship.
Israelites.
It's false worship.
Correct, but that's not why they're being annihilated, right? They're being annihilated because God does not want them teaching the Israelites. It's not because of them worshiping the false
does it
gods
say that?
themselves. Yeah, I have it highlighted. The whole thing's highlighted.
Where does this say the Israelites?
Who's Deuteronomy being given to?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not versed on this chapter fully, but I mean, you're
Yeah,
just kind of like
Deuteronomy.
making a
Yeah,
push here.
yeah, Deuteronomy is the last set of laws given to the Israelites before they entered the promised land. These were the actions they were supposed to take once they entered the promised land. So when it says they
Okay.
may not teach you, the you are the Israelites, right? So that they may not
Mm-hmm.
teach you, the Israelites, to do all the abhorrent things they do for their gods, and you
Yep.
thus sin. It's not about them worshiping their false gods. It's not about that at all. It's because God does not want these people mentioned up here teaching the Israelites.
Yeah, of false worship of their gods.
Yeah, yeah, but it's
Well, that
not
means that they
because
have
hold
separate
on.
gods from
Yes,
God.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. But
So
it's
then
not
where are
hold
we
on,
losing?
but it's not because of the worship of their gods. It's because God has already seen that they will teach the Israelites about their gods. And because God has already seen it, they can
Mm-hmm.
choose not to do other than what God has already seen. They can do nothing but teach them. So because God has already seen that, God says, I've already seen that they're going to teach you. I don't want them teaching you, so go annihilate them so they can't teach you.
But
They
what
have
if he
no
saw
free
that they were going
will.
to teach them terrible things?
Yeah.
Have them believe in false things that would get them trapped in the material plane. I
Yeah, that's
mean,
what's happening. That's
you
exactly what's
you
happening.
can't.
Yeah, yeah,
You,
you got it.
okay.
You're right on. You're right on. You're spot on. You got it. God saw that they were going to do that. Now, my question is, can these
Mm-hmm.
people choose to do otherwise?
Well, clearly not in that sense, but you
Oh,
also
so
have
they
to realize
can't.
that, like,
So they
They
can't.
can't.
I'm glad you agree that they can't choose to do otherwise.
oh,
We'll
jeez,
get
you're a
in
little
there. We'll
word
get in there,
twister.
Cyber.
You
We'll
with
get there.
your little army of two lesbians you got right here. You little word twisters. All right. I mean, I can see you
Don't
don't
be
fit
mad.
in
I
with
could get
them.
more pussy than you, bro.
Oh, trust me, you wish you looked like me. You wish. You so wish.
Not even
Nah, he's a
close.
crash
I'm
out,
happy
man.
with the way I look.
All right, yeah.
Well, I'm
I
glad
bet
that
we
we
go
got him to
fucking
agree
mog for
with this,
mog. Yeah, I
Cyber.
already see
I'm
your
glad that
profile pic, Dark
we
Knight.
can
You're
get
on
in
here trying
here.
to fucking pull some pussy, trying to go against God. Ain't working for you.
But so you are telling me though that these nations could
And how
choose
does it?
to not hold on,
All right.
because what you're arguing that we have true free will. My point is that because God is all knowing, that we don't
Mhm.
have true free will. We have an illusion of free will, but true free will does not exist, because if God has already seen it happening, we can do nothing other than what God has already seen, and this proves
Exactly.
it.
Well, then why is he allowing you right here to sit and talk blasphemy against him? Why isn't he striking you down on this live stream?
Because he doesn't
Uh,
exist.
He
yeah,
doesn't
because I
exist.
believe he
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
Oh, because he
He
doesn't
exists.
exist.
Yo,
All right,
Chuckin,
he
Chuckin,
doesn't
let me ask you a
exist.
question, Chuckin.
Yes,
If
yes,
God
Mr.
stops
100 IQ.
Chuckin, if God stops someone from sinning, is that a violation of their free will?
Well, if they are one that believes and wants to be on a path of good, then no. But if it's someone that is just fully enthralled in free will, then I mean, I guess you could consider. But God is good. That's what you
I don't
people
know
don't
what that
understand.
means. Fully
God is good. And
enthralled
Old
in free
Testament God,
will.
yes, Old Testament God was much more of a punishing, wrathful God. But when he instilled the rainbow, the promise to never flood, do such things on the people again, that's when he
It,
enacted.
it's just a
When
simple
he brought
yes or
his
no
son down to
question.
sacrifice for sins,
Chuckin,
that
you
is
don't
when
have to
he
do the
enacted.
preaching. We know
Yeah,
the
it's a
Bible
simple
already. We know
question.
these stories. It's just a yes or no question. If God
I'm
stops
trying to
someone from
answer your
sinning,
question.
is that please stop talking. Is that a violation of someone's free will if God stopped them from sinning? It's a yes or no.
It's not a yes or no question. You're making it one.
Yes,
That's
that's
your
exactly
issue.
what the
Hmm.
purpose of the question is. It's a yes or no question.
Yeah, so you're trying to push things towards your agreement, your alignment.
So you can just answer the question. It's a yes or no. If God intervenes, is he taking away people's free will when he intervenes?
Yes.
Okay.
See, was that hard?
And
Was that hard?
it wasn't that difficult.
But it needs to be put into a perspective. That's the
Well,
thing.
hold
Is
on.
you're trying
Before you
to
put
make
it
it
in
an open,
perspective,
clear
hold
thing.
on. I still have more questions. So,
All right. Go ahead.
okay, so you agree it's a violation of someone's free will for God to intervene or for him to stop someone from sinning. Cyber, can you put a scripture on the screen for me real quick?
Yeah. What scripture do you want?
Genesis 20.
What verse?
Wait,
And then you can go
You're
to
Jewish? You don't
verse,
believe-
let's do verse 6.
Verse 6. Genesis 20, verse 6.
Yeah. And so everybody keep in mind, he already stated that if God intervenes in someone's life and stops them from sinning, that's a violation of free will. It says, then God said to him in a dream, yes, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart. Furthermore, it is I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. So this whole free will bullshit is meaningless. The Bible doesn't even support the idea of free will. And you already agreed with, based off of your answer earlier, that if God intervened and free will doesn't exist, it's a violation of our free will.
You know, I'm gonna highlight.
So you're gonna
This
use
is
one.
good.
You're gonna use one Bible verse as an example.
I can
that-
give you more.
that completely negates free will. You're gonna use one verse from the Bible.
Well,
That-
hold
that
on.
just
We've given you
defines that.
hold on. We've given you a handful, right? We've given
You gave
you
me two,
the
and you've
hold
taken
on.
them
We've
both out
given
of
you no.
context.
We've given you the prophecies with Judas and Peter. We've given those to you. We've given
Yep.
you with the Hittites and those ones. We've given you this one. We can even go into Exodus where God hardens Pharaoh's heart. In fact, we go to the Dead Sea, and we have where they're about to cross the Dead Sea, and Pharaoh is like, fine, fuck off, you guys, I don't care anymore. And then God tells Moses, hey, just so you know, you better hurry up and get across that sea, because I hardened Pharaoh's heart again. He's on his way here right now with his militaries, because I need to display my power one more time for all the world to see. So you better hurry up and run.
Okay.
Yeah. And I
All right.
think the thing that would crucify you the worst, more than, oh, wait, hold on. There's a noise.
Crucify me.
Yeah, the thing that's going to crucify you the
Don't ever
worst,
use that word
more than your,
towards me. Thank you.
the thing that's going to crucify you worse than
All
your
right.
Savior.
I asked you
is
nicely please not
Romans
to use
9.
that word towards me. Thank
Okay,
you.
Chuckin, I don't care about your feelings. So, listen, if you read Romans 9, Romans 9 is going to demolish your entire position about free will. Have you actually read Romans 9?
I can pull it up. Would you like it in the Greek?
Oh no, I haven't. No, please, let me know. Let me know. Go
Yeah,
to
we'll
it.
read Romans
Show me.
9.
Show me. Oh yeah. You people are winning.
We are
Look at
winning. You haven't been able.
Oh yeah. I pray
So-
Jesus encounters you before the rapture. I really do. You people are so lost.
We're not.
Can you
You're,
actually
you're
go
the
to
one
You
lost.
see how
Can
sick
you go
they
to verse
sound?
6? Can you go to verse 16, Cyber? Just scroll up a little bit.
Oh yeah. We
Yeah.
can go there. So verse 16.
Oh, man.
So it depends not on human will or exertion, but on God who shows mercy. For the scripture says to Pharaoh, I have raised you up for this very purpose, that I may show my power in you, and that my name not be proclaimed in all the earth. So, and again, this is referencing right here, proclaimed all the earth is the entirety of the 10 plagues, is so that Pharaoh, Egypt could be used as an example to show God's will. If you remember, the first few plagues, Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Pharaoh said, my magicians, my magi, they did that too. I'm not worried about it. But as soon as it started performing plagues that the magi could not perform, then Pharaoh said, fuck that noise. I don't want none of that. You can go. And as soon as Moses turned to walk out, God said, wait, no. I need 10 of these plagues. I need to show my full power. So that I may show my power in you, and that my name shall be proclaimed in all the earth. So then he has mercy on whom he chooses. He hardens the heart of whomever he chooses. You will say to me then, why does he still find fault? For who can resist his will? So again, right here, Peter is saying, why are we still blamed? Because we're not able to resist his will. If God wants us to do something, we're gonna do it. And this is Peter acknowledging that God does harden our hearts, takes away free will. Hold on. But who indeed are you, a human, to argue with God? And this is why we don't have a right to argue. Will what is molded say to the one who molds it, why have you made me like this? Has the potter no right over the clay to make out of the same lump one object for special use and the other for ordinary use? What if God, desiring to show his wrath and make known his power, has endured with much patience the objects of wrath that are made for destruction? And what if he has done so in order to make known the riches of his glory for the objects of mercy? So
I understand it.
Yeah, you're cooked. We know it.
No, I'm not. You people don't even understand the Bible or God whatsoever, and it shows you take everything for face value in the book.
We understand
So if I judged you for the first things you said in your life, or the worst things you said in your life, or when you hurt somebody, and it was all in a book and it was displayed, could I never say that you grew, you changed? Can I not say that?
Oh, we're just reading the words. We're just reading the words where God. We're reading the words.
I understand.
Where God inspired men to write these words down. Right, these are inspired by God.
Indeed, he did,
to write these words down. And it is to show, right, clearly that God doesn't believe in free will. Free will doesn't exist. We are solely here at the. Oh, he dropped. Probably because he got getting tired of being muted. But that just shows that free will doesn't exist. There is no such thing as free will.
Agreed. Even with the story of Jonah, like Jonah wasn't able to like run away from what God called him to do. Like God kept forcing him to go back and was like tormenting other people for, or not Job, but Jonah's actions. And so like, where's this whole idea of free will coming from? I don't get it, but it is what it is.
It's a cop out. That's all it is.
Yeah, I tried to bring out. We had somebody in chat that was like, "Up me up," and I tried to bring him up.
Oh,
and
yeah, I saw that.
Oh, aim to please came back up. We'll bring aim to please on up.
Yo, hello.
Aim to please, can we have your age for TikTok TOS, please?
Yo,
Can we have your age for TikTok TOS, please?
18.
Okay, we believe your God is a sick monster. Can you prove us wrong?
I'm gonna ask a question. Why is God a sick monster? What's your POV?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Well, we can go into the story of David and Bathsheba. Host, if you would be so kind. Do you think it is okay to punish someone for their sins by taking it out on innocents?
Can you repeat that real quick?
We're gonna go to the story of David and Bathsheba, and this question correlates with it. Do you think it is okay to punish an innocent person for the sins of someone else?
No.
Okay, well, God thought that was perfectly acceptable, and we are about to read that passage now. Host will bring it on the screen so you can read along.
Yep.
I have a question.
Okay.
Did the person commit the sin too?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
And what
We're
book
about
was
to read it. I believe it's in Is the story in Deuteronomy or is it in
It's in Samuel. It's in Second
Samuel? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
It says that in the Bible?
Yep.
Yes.
So, are you familiar with the story of David and Bathsheba?
I am not.
Okay, so the story of Bathsheba goes as follows. The Israelites are at war with the Ammonites, and while they're at war, David is chilling up on his palace, and he sees Bathsheba bathing. Now, Bathsheba is married to a man named Uriah.
Yes.
And David likes her. David's attracted to her. David has his servants bring her to the palace, and he gets her pregnant. So, realizing that he has got her, well, he probably got her pregnant, he calls Uriah, he calls her husband from the battlefield and is trying to get Uriah to sleep with her. And Uriah doesn't. Uriah pretty much says, I can't do this. My brothers are in battle right now. I can't enjoy this luxury while my brothers are unaliving right now. So he refuses. So this puts David in a pickle, because if it turns out that she is pregnant, under the law, what's the punishment?
If Jesus Christ didn't die, then
Well,
death.
Jesus hasn't died yet. Jesus hasn't died yet.
So the punishment is your life, because
Yeah,
that.
hold on. Yeah,
was.
you're right. The punishment would have been David's life, right? And possibly Bathsheba's. Bathsheba's, that's kind of up in the air. Who is she in a position to tell the king no? So her position is up in the air, but David's life definitely would have been on the line. So David gets this bright idea. Well, if I send Uriah to the front line and he dies, well, now Bathsheba is single and I can marry her. So that's what he does. He sends Uriah to the front line and Uriah dies.
Who got
then-
the punishment?
Yeah, we'll get there. So Nathan, who's the prophet, comes to David and says, chastises him for using the sword of the Ammonites to kill Uriah. And then in verse 10, now therefore the sword shall never depart from your house, for you have despised me and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus says the Lord, I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house, and I will take your wives. Right, I will take your wives. I'm going to get this highlighted in blue real quick. And I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in broad daylight. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all of Israel and in broad daylight. So, Hanji, would you like to explain what the threat is here?
Basically, he's saying, because you have slept with another woman's man, I'm going to have your wives raped in front of all of Israel.
So he had multiple wives, right?
He had 10 wives,
Yes.
Okay, he had 10 wives?
Yes.
Dang. Okay, but him having 10 wives, that is called lust. Therefore,
Yep.
No, God
woman
gave
that
them
he
to
got-
him. God gave them to him. They were
That's
Saul's
literally why he
wives.
said, that's literally why he said that
So
and
he's
I
gonna
will
kill
take
the,
you.
He's gonna kill the wives?
No,
Yeah, as
he
a matter of
doesn't have
fact-
them
Yeah, as a matter of
killed,
fact,
he has
up
them
here.
raped.
Yeah, up
But she
here.
just said no.
Wait, what?
She just said no.
No to what?
She just said,
Them being killed?
I said did he kill the wives? And she said no. And now you're
No,
saying
they're
yes.
they're going to be. No. What I'm saying is up here in verse 8.
Yeah.
God is saying, I gave you your master's house. Saul was his master. I gave you your master's house and your master's wives, right? So God gave him the wives.
So Saul had a slave.
What?
What? Saul had multiple wives, and God gave those wives to David.
My apologies. So Saul gave the wives to whom?
To David. God gave them to David.
God gave Saul.
God gave them to David.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Saul's
Okay,
dead.
that's it.
Saul got killed.
Saul's. He wasn't on the front lines, right?
No, that was
No.
Uriah.
Uriah.
Paying attention, man.
Yeah. Lock in.
But anyway,
So the question is, why did God punish David's wives by having them raped?
what do you mean by raped?
Remove the G.
Yeah, I'll say it. Why did God have them raped?
Okay, so since God gave them the wives, that therefore it is a sin.
Wait, what?
Because hold on. Whoa.
How did
So
the
the
wives sin?
So the wives got raped.
Yes, by Absalom. In chapter 16.
Can you show me?
Yep.
Read it.
Yep. We'll go to
I believe you, but I
chapter.
want to see.
Yeah, we'll go to chapter 16 where this happens, all the way down here. Then Absalom is David's son, and these women raised him. They're like these are his stepmoms, right? Then
Yeah.
Absalom said to Ahithophel was like a counselor to Saul,
Okay.
to David, now to Absalom. He betrayed David. Then Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give us your counsel. What shall we do?" Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go into your father's concubines, the one he has left to look after the house, and all of Israel will hear that you have made yourself odious to your father, and the hands of all who are with you will be strengthened." So they pitched
Hey,
hold on.
you keep
So
lagging
they
out.
Oh, do I? Sorry. So they pitched a tent for
Okay.
Absalom upon the roof, and Absalom went to his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. It's almost as if this is exactly what Nathan said was going to happen. And Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll
So
learn
he
that
got
this
punished.
came from an oracle of God that both Ahithophel, David, and Absalom listened to. So suggesting that this also came from God himself as well.
Yo, you keep lagging out. Repeat your last.
Yeah, I'm saying that this suggests down here at the end when it talks about the oracle of God, it suggests that Ahithophel received this counsel from God himself as well.
So, well, so hold on. Excuse me for a second. All right, thank you. So he got punished in front of Israel, right?
No.
His wives were great.
His wives.
Yeah.
My apologies. His wives
His
got
10
punished.
wives were raped in
His
front of
10
all of
wives.
Israel. For his sin. Nothing that they did, it's his sin.
Well, yeah, the one who inspires someone to sin shall get the punishment.
No,
Where does
Abe,
it
this is what you're not understanding, right? Listen closely. Open your ears. Listen closely.
Hold
Now,
on.
therefore,
I have neurological
the
problems,
sword.
so it's really
Okay,
difficult for me.
I'll go slow.
Okay,
Now,
thank you.
therefore, the sword shall never depart from your house, for you have despised me and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. He's talking about when he made the baby with Uriah's wife. Now it says, "Thus says the Lord," this is your God's words, "I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in broad daylight." Meaning, all the wives that God has given David, he is taking back and giving them to the neighbors to be raped. "For you did it secretly," which was when she got out of the tub, "but I will do this thing before all of Israel and in broad daylight."
So,
David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." So he knows that he sinned against the Lord by sleeping with a married man's wife. And this is God's punishment to David by having the women who have not done anything but just be married to him suffer. Does that make sense?
actually, it does because he's trying to ruin his life. That's the punishment, trying to ruin his life.
Yeah, but the
He
question
could have
is
done that
though.
with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is why is this being done instead of actually following the law, which I think the best way in this case to ruin David's life would be to follow the law as told in the Old Testament or in the Torah was to have him stoned. I think unaliving somebody ruins their life pretty good. But no, instead he has his wives raped instead.
Now I got a better understanding. Okay, so ruining your life is a metaphor for like making your life horrible. So then, since God is all knowing, he knows what his punishment is because he knows what he despises. the most.
But why is he?
So
But the question isn't about punishing David. The question is, why is God punishing David by also punishing these 10 innocent women who had nothing to do with it?
I'm
They
trying
didn't
to
even know their
explain that.
husband cheated.
He's trying to punish David for his sin. So he punished their wives so he can feel horrible and it will
aim. Stop.
Yes.
God could have easily just punished David by doing fucked up shit, having him lose wars, having him lose his fortune. He could have done it in a plethora of other ways, having lost his men. But
David
hold
wouldn't
on.
care.
First of all, I don't know who the fuck you're yelling at, but I know it's not fucking me. So watch that motherfucking tone. See, I was nice to your ass. Now you got the right one. You got the right one, bitch. Don't fucking play with me.
So, but
he could have done a lot of ways to make David's life a living Hades, but instead, he did it to innocent people, and it wasn't just his wives either. Now you can speak, puppy.
So yeah, so the question is, why are David's wives being punished for a crime they didn't commit?
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
I sent you an invite too.
All right. Okay, first of all, I wasn't yelling at you.
Oh my God, aim.
And
Just
second
Just
of
answer
all,
the question.
Aim, just answer the question, man.
so the question is, why did God punish the wives?
Yep.
To punish David. It's to punish David. David cares about those wives so much, more than losing a war. I mean, who knows? Who knows? He could have cared about them so much, he wouldn't even care if he died.
So aim. Is it a good thing to punish innocent people for somebody else's crimes?
To make them feel horrible, humiliated. Yes.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay. Go ahead.
So
Wait, but I have a question.
This is wild.
well, hold on. I need to address something real quick
Wait.
in chat. So in chat, we have our good friend Durden's here. So we do know that God actually did allow this to happen, because when we go and we read just in chapter 16, where this does come to fruition, then Absalom said to Ahithophel, "Give us your counsel. What shall we do?" Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go into your father's concubines, the one he has left to look after the house, and all of Israel will hear that you have made yourself odious to your father, and the hands of all who are with you will be strengthened." So they pitched a tent for Absalom upon the roof, and Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. Sounds like the threat that Nathan gave to David, saying what would happen. Right? Now, in those days, the counsel that Ahithophel gave was as if one consulted the oracle. And if we go down here and we look at the text or the word, so we're talking to somebody who is speaking on behalf of God. They have the authority to speak on behalf of God. Ahithophel gave was as if one consulted the oracle of God. So all the counsel of Ahithophel was esteemed by both David and Absalom. So Ahithophel is receiving this command, this advice from God. So yes, God is telling Ahithophel, God is telling Absalom to do this through Ahithophel.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is on your computer, is this the Bible that we're reading off to?
Yes, it's the Bible. It's in 2 Samuel.
What version of the Bible is it?
It's the NRSVUE. It's a scholarly edition.
Give me a second.
Durden, I just showed you the text did say that. Hold on. Gotta go show Durden where it says it again. We'll go show that to Durden again. Start calling Durden dum-dum. So what we'll read here, so here we'll get, Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go into your father's concubines, the ones he left to look after the house, and all of Israel will hear that you've made yourself odious to your father in the sight of all who were strengthened. So they pitched a tent upon the roof, and Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all of Israel. Now, in those days, a counsel of Ahithophel was given, or the counsel that Ahithophel gave was as if one consulted the oracle of God. And what's going to be important here, we'll see if this does here. We'll go down here to no, it's not going to let that highlight. Will it let this highlight? It's not going to let that highlight. But when you come down here, the Hebrew word there also means word. So it's as if one consulted the word of God, so that all the counsel of Ahithophel was esteemed by both David and Absalom. So God, Durden, dum-dum, you dummy, quite literally states that Ahithophel got this command from God. You dummy.
All right. What was God's law back then?
The law was that, so it depends. So the law is that if David is sleeping with a woman who is married, he is to be put to death. Now, if the law was like he raped her, if he seizes her, then nothing would happen to her because she had no control, but at least the man would be put to unalivement. Now, if she chose to do it, if she chose to also commit adultery against her husband, then they are both put to unalivement, right? But the question would be, and this is where I would add in ideology that we have living in the time frame we live today, because we do have an understanding that back then women were viewed as property, so they didn't necessarily have a choice. But the question would be is, did Bathsheba actually choose to sleep with King David, or is it a case of David is the king and who tells the king no, right? That's a question on her guilt. Did she choose to do it, or was she herself raped?
She did it.
But regardless, under the law, no matter how we look at the old law, David should have been stoned to death. David should have been killed.
Yep, he should, but he didn't rape her. She actually wanted to have sex with him.
No, but he still committed adultery, though.
They both did.
Yeah, and do you know what the law is if
they
he commits adultery? Yeah, do
they
you know what
committed
the
lust.
law? Yeah, and do you know what the punishment for him is?
Being stoned.
Yeah, and did God have David stoned?
No, he did not. He had something worse.
Yeah, he had innocent women raped. He
did a worse punishment. Exactly.
Yeah, he did something that I would think it makes him an absolute monster. Can you agree that by having Absalom having the stepmothers of this child?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Because I'm trying to understand where's the justice being executed within this story. Like, if women who are innocent, they did absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever, they're being punished on someone else's actions. Where's the justice in here? Because I'm just confused, man.
Where's the justice?
Yeah.
Okay, so he should have been stoned to death, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's worse than being stoned to death to David? I mean, to the other guy.
Well, we're not worried about David, right? Because you're focusing, because this is one of the issues that we have with Christianity and the Abrahamic faiths and as a whole. You are focusing on the man. You're like, well, what's the better punishment for the man? Forget David. What about the wives? What about the women, the 10 women who did nothing wrong, and they are now on top of a roof getting raped by their son?
Exactly. Like you wouldn't apply this anywhere else in your life. Like for example, if you were David, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had a girlfriend and your girlfriend was
Nobody likes her.
punished severely for something that you did, I truly don't believe you would say this is a good thing, this is just, my girlfriend deserves it. Like you would be questioning what the hell's going on, why is she being punished? But you're doing some mental gymnastics and special pleading for God within this case. So
Okay,
go ahead.
let me tell you this. Somebody does a crime and somebody was convicted for the crime. Would that be justice or injustice?
Yeah, are the we're not talking. You keep focusing on David. We're not worried about
Yeah, I am.
David. We're focusing on the women that were raped. What did they do to deserve to be raped?
Listen, you know how God is almighty and powerful, right?
He's not. He doesn't exist. But quit dodging the question,
How does he-
dummy. The
Okay.
question is, lock in. I need you to lock in and focus, right? Why are the wives, why are they being punished when they did nothing wrong?
Oye, porque yo no sé lo que tú estás hablando, ¿me escucha?
Motherfucker, don't start acting
Yeah.
like he doesn't know. He does know.
He does
Stop
know.
pussyfooting and answer the fucking question.
No manches way. You know exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, first of all, I'm not Mexican.
I never
Guess
said
what,
you were.
bitch? It's Spanish either way.
Yeah,
It's
sí
still
me
the
entiendes.
Spaniard tongue.
Si me entiendes, cabrón. So go ahead and answer Sarva's question.
¿Qué cojones este tipo?
Yeah, and I agree with Chopper Lie. I just think he doesn't care about women. I think he's just a
Yeah.
misogynist, disgusting pig, and just doesn't care.
Maybe we can talk about the baby. You know, in that verse at the very bottom, it says David's baby was going to be taken from him because of his.
Oh, he is
sin.
Preston. He didn't expect two Spanish speakers up here.
Yeah, we can talk about that as well. So this isn't. So yeah, we can move on. That's not where this ends. I think we can. I think that's a good idea. So that's not where this ends, right? So we'll read here where. Get this brought up. We're gonna read where David goes. Nathan said to David, "Now the Lord has put away your sin," meaning David's been forgiven. "You shall not die, nevertheless, because by this deed you have utterly scorned the Lord. The child born to you shall die." Now, not only was the raping of his wives bad enough, but as soon as David says, hold on, I sinned, because that's what David does. David will make a little mistake, and God punishes other people. God never punishes David directly. God takes it out on other people. And every time David goes, whoa, I'm the one who made a mistake. This is David, when he says, I have sinned against the Lord, this is David trying to take accountability. This is David saying, no, I did this. And then God says, nevertheless, because by this deed you have utterly scorned the Lord, your child shall die. Then Nathan went to his house, and then we learn that the child suffered for 7 days. For 7 days the child suffered, and then on the 7th day, the child died. And during this 7 days, David is not eating. He is fasting. He is laying on the ground. He is not leaving this child's side, hoping that God will allow the child to live. And God doesn't. Why did this child get punished?
Tú sabes que yo estaba diciendo, maricón.
Yeah. I don't know what was said.
I said, now do you understand what the host is saying, you little bitch? Dale. ¿Qué pasó? Gato,
Listen.
¿qué tiene tu lengua? Gato tiene tu lengua. Unmute.
I sent you an invite to unmute. What I need you to do is exhale your air and follow the bubbles to the surface. Just exhale the air, follow the bubbles to the surface. Once you get to the surface, take a deep breath. I sent you an invite to unmute.
And for all my counsel, I am fuck around and find out in 4 fluent languages.
All right, I'll disconnect you. Come. Oh, I accidentally disconnected. Hanji, come back up. I accidentally disconnected Hanji. Come back up, though. I didn't mean to disconnect Hanji.
Yo, let me summon Hanji from the dead. About 100 shit of a Honda. Okay, she's back.
Not you speaking in tongues. I should have summoned a Honda.
Sha-la-la-la. Look, let me tell you, growing up practicing Orthodox Judaism, the idea of speaking tongues and the way Christians do it just baffles me. The first time, so I went to church with one of my friends because he was receiving like an award or something, and it was one of those things where they like speak tongues and everybody goes crazy. And I remember sitting there as a young Jewish boy being like, I don't know what's happening, like I have no idea what's going on right now, but this is goofy.
He's saying he couldn't unmute his mic, but we'll get to that in a second. Xander, Yasuta kanisa gabi mo. What is your age?
I'm 30.
Okay, thank you. And we believe God is a sick monster. Can you prove us wrong?
I mean, I think if you're referring to like a biblical God, it's kind of like an easy low-hanging fruit. Because I mean, those, it doesn't matter what book it is. It could be, Judaism. It could be Christianity. It could be the Quran. There's so much content that it's not hard to find things to like nitpick at. Me personally, my opinion is like, because when you say, oh, God said to grape these 10 women, it translates to me as, no, that some guy wrote that. You know what I'm saying? To me, my God, I don't belong to a dogma, but my God personally is just love. And anything that strays from love is not God, in my opinion. That's just my belief.
So what scripture do you get your God from?
Well, I feel like it's important to expose yourself to different religions and just to take the things that you resonate with, because I feel like you can find value in many different cultures and religions. I think where people get messed up is like, especially when people that like rely on the Bible to think, like they can't think for themselves, and so they want to rely on something else and give all their power.
Xander, Cyber wants to know what are you basing your beliefs off of when you talk about God is love? Like, how do you know that's true, and where are you getting that from?
It's just like a kind of truth that I come to my own conclusion with.
All right, question I have for you then is this like an Abrahamic God?
Yeah. No, so I define myself as like pragmatic theist. Like I feel like, the end justifies the mean. Like believe in God or not, if you're a shitty person, it doesn't matter.
Let me ask you another question, because I think when we come to these, especially if it's a case where you don't necessarily say you're going to hold to say like the Abrahamic gods, but you believe that God is love and anything that goes against love isn't God. I guess the question then would be, is the naturalistic problem of evil. So are we in agreement that like a God is a mind that created everything?
So I think the universe is a living organism that is God. And I do think there is intelligence and design behind the universe.
Well, I'm about to show you why there's not. But the question then would be is, so you believe that God is the universe. Does the universe have a mind?
Well, before we get
I
into
mean,
that precept, Xander, do you believe in the God of the Bible, or just
He
a
he said
universal
no.
entity?
No.
He
Oh,
said no.
okay.
well, the
Yeah.
problem, the problem with the Bible is, for one, the King James version is heavily altered compared to the original version.
Oh,
Oh
I
yeah,
use the
never read that one.
NRSVUE. Yeah, I use
If
the
you know about
NRSVUE.
if you know about the Ethiopian Bible, the Ethiopian Bible has a lot more books that the King James version doesn't have. But I
Well,
think
yeah,
that
I don't use the KJV. Look,
Yeah.
chat on both TikTok and YouTube. If you use the KJV Bible, stop it. Stop it.
Burn it.
Go get a good Bible. Go get a good Bible. Go get like the Oxford Annotated. They should have a new one coming out here probably next year. Save up to get that one.
I think it's
Use
September.
the NRSVUE. So many better Bibles used. Stay away from the KJV. It's horrible.
Also, Xander, does your God have the omni properties, like omnibenevolent, omniscient, etc.?
well, if God is the universe, then it would theoretically have all knowledge.
Okay, so it's a mind that has all the knowledge. Okay.
Well, that's what I need to know. Is it a mind? Because you stated like there is, that everything is designed. Does your deity have a mind?
I would just, the universe is consciousness, basically. That's how I would
Well,
explain
there's no
it.
evidence of that. You have no evidence of that. What's your evidence for that?
Yeah, I don't have evidence. I don't have evidence for it.
Yeah, and nobody does. I would hold that consciousness, from everything that we've observed with consciousness requires a physical mind, because it seems that every time we can take certain medications and we can actually alter the consciousness of a mind, we are able to stop the consciousness as soon as we stop the mind from functioning. So it just seems that consciousness is just a byproduct of a biological brain.
Yeah, but what's your explanation for near-death experiences?
They don't
Because
exist.
but there's so many stories that kind of align with like a similar experience where like they
Chat,
have
he
two.
don't know. Chat, he
They
don't
have
know.
360.
So
Yeah,
in call,
360.
so yeah.
Wait, can
so
I finish?
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, like like basically they describe like having 360 vision, like point of view, field of view, being able to see their own body on the floor, see the people in the room. So it seems like they say that energy can't be created or destroyed, and if your soul is energy, I do believe that you're a body with your soul in a body. You're not a body with a soul.
So the issue that you're going to run into this is that in college, so I have a master's degree in theology, and in one of the papers that I actually wrote a whole ass paper on this, was on near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences, and they don't exist. So what part of my study did is, not only did I read over like 500,000 reports, not just myself, but a bunch of other people that we were working on this on, but we read a bunch of research papers, but we conducted our own study. So part of our study was going to different hospitals. Like we went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, we went to the Cleveland Clinic, Toronto, we went to Johns Hopkins, we went to the Massachusetts General Hospital, we went to the Sheba Medical Center in Israel, we went to the Singapore General Hospital, and we went to a bunch of other hospitals, over 20 hospitals that we went to. And we didn't physically go to them, but we gave them a call, and we had a kit that we wanted to send them. And essentially in this kit was going to be just like a little stuffed animal that we were going to have painted red. So, for example, for those who don't know, it's actually where Spanky comes from. So we had Spanky, and we had Spanky's mouth was taped shut with a red cross. And we had various stuffed animals, various items placed up above on the upper part of these rooms, And we wanted to make sure that they were pushed further back where they couldn't be seen from the ground level, right? In order for these to be seen, you had to be up on a ladder, essentially having this, floating above the body, near death experience, out of body experience. And we based on doing this idea because, again, out of these papers that we had read, these studies that we had read, we figured that this would be the best way to test it. So first thing with the near-death experience. So the idea of a near-death experience is that as somebody is passing away, they start to go into the afterlife and they start to see the afterlife. The problem that we found and that correlated with the studies that we have read on this is that everybody has a different near-death experience, right? Even amongst Christians, some of them see St. Peter. Some of them see Jesus Christ giving them a hug. Some of them see their family members, right? Some of them will see themselves actually starting to reincarnate. It depended on what their religion was, and it correlated with their religion. And we found that these were more likely to occur if they were injured, and while they were injured, a family member or somebody that was religious was talking to them about an afterlife. That's when these seemed to be more occurring, and they corresponded with what those individuals were saying as they were going. Now, when it comes to out-of-body experiences, not only did we have these animals up around, these stuffed animals and these various items, we also had the hospital staff putting red crosses on top of their head. And anytime any of the staff bent over to where whoever was laying on the bed, whoever was, the person being attended to, could see it, they would note that. And what we found is that nobody had any actual out-of-body experiences. They were quite literally just reporting everything that they could see from their bed. Absolutely none of them reported seeing these items that had red crosses on them that we had tucked away high up and in corners where if they were floating or even on a ladder, they should have been able to see, but they didn't. And even the ones who reported seeing a red cross on top of their doctors' heads, those only correlated with when the doctor had written down, or one of the nurses had written down, the doctor bent over so the person could have potentially seen that. So this leads me to believe that near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences aren't real. They don't exist.
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting study.
Mm-hmm. It is. It was something that I had, because when I was younger, I likewise thought that I had an out-of-body experience when I was younger. But then I took a psychology class, and as I was taking my psychology class, they talk about how when you are in a position where you're going to unalive, your body starts releasing all sorts of chemical concoctions in your brain because it's putting your body into shock. And shock is your body preparing to unalive. But your body is not aware of medical interventions that are being done on it. It's not aware of those. It's not aware of when your heart goes into arrhythmia that somebody's going to shock it back into a proper pace, right? The body doesn't know that.
So the data that you collected was from people that almost died?
So it was data that was collected over a period of 6 months in over 20 different ERs and ORs. And these were people, and we had a percentage of them. About 60% of them were people that had been what's called clinically dead. Clinically dead means that there is no breath and no heartbeat. That's what's considered clinically dead. Legally dead is once the doctor looks at that and goes, okay, time it, right? They say call it. That's legally dead. So these were, like I said, a high percentage of them were people that were clinically dead.
Okay. I mean, I still believe in the soul, because if you think about, have you ever heard of stories where people like children pointing out where they died or where they were murdered, or children that are recounting very details about a past
I
life?
don't think a child that is pointing out where they were murdered is in a position to point out where they were murdered.
There's one story where this child was at the grocery store with her mother, and she notices a man in the supermarket that was her murderer, for example. And there's other stories like that where something that the child knew led to a unsolved mystery being solved, an unsolved murder. It's really fascinating. There's also other stories of where a child would recount a past life in great detail, and then they would investigate and find that all the details were true.
Yeah, and what are the ages? What are the ages of this kid? What's their religion? What's their background? What are their parents doing? Because, for example, Knight might remember this. There used to be and some of you might remember this. There's an old TV show that used to be on TV called Unsolved Mysteries, and Unsolved Mysteries did have like quite a lot of told unsolved mysteries. And it turned out that my sister was asleep while one of these episodes was on. She was asleep, and for the longest time, and it was a case where they were reporting, because they'll do like an episode, and then the idea is they do the episode and then they have a hotline number that they flash throughout it, and if you have information you can call in. My sister had just happened to be asleep, and it was during an episode where they were talking about a mystery that had been solved. My sister was asleep for the longest time. She was under the impression that she had actually, like, now granted this is anecdotal, but she was under the impression that something had showed her this mystery. And then, as a matter of fact, it was like about 3 months ago, we were watching Unsolved Mysteries, because you can still watch it on TV from time to time. And we watched that episode, just happened to come on, and she's like, oh, I thought I knew about that. I'm like, no, you must have heard about this, right? So there's things that can explain these. You just have to dig in deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from,
For
but
sure. I think every supernatural claim that people make, you need to investigate whether or not there can be a natural explanation for the claim. And more than likely, it usually is. And I mean, even in all these cases that Cyber mentioned earlier and the ones that we were talking about even now, like there's just a simple natural explanation to them. Like
wait, who's
the only
talking?
way you can posit a supernatural explanation would be if you're able to demonstrate the existence of a supernatural power or deity or something like that. And I don't know if you're capable of doing that. I'm not saying that you're like incoherent or like you're not intelligent or anything like that, but I'm just saying like you would need to be able to prove that the supernatural exists before we're willing to accept something to be supernatural. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I respect that.
Now,
I would
I
have
will
to-
say,
I would have
Now-
to come back with more on the past life thing, but
yeah. Now, something I will say, and I noticed Durden was saying something in here, psychology would never prove the existence of a soul. 100%, 100%. You will never hear me say there is absolutely no, you can't prove it. I'll just say there's no evidence of it. And the evidence that we do have points to there not being a soul. So very, very rarely will you hear me give 100%. Now, I am fairly confident. I'm like 99% confident that there's no way the Abrahamic God exists. I'm about 99% confident. But question that I have, though, is, because we kind of weren't talking about it, do you believe that this universe that you believe in, do you believe that it, like, created everything, though?
I do think that there's a driving force, at the source of everything. But
Because you mentioned that it's love. So in order for it to be love, would mean that it kind of has to control things, right?
why would it have to control things?
Well, how can it be love, all love, unless it controls things? Because you mentioned that when you read the Bible, you know the Bible's man-made because there's horrible things in it. So you know that it's at least influenced by man.
Well, I mean, I think unconditional love should not be controlling to be personally.
What's your
Like-
definition of unconditional love?
Like appreciating something but not wanting to control it or manipulate it, not wanting to possess it. For example, if I love a flower, I'm going to leave it in the ground. I might water it, I might nurture it, but I'm going to let it grow. I'm going to let it be whatever it wants to be. Now, people think love is about possession. They want to pluck the flower and they want to keep the flower and it's my flower. But to me, that's not unconditional love. Does that make sense?
So why is it then the case, right, that God created a world in which the sun itself seems to want to unalive us?
The sun?
Yeah, the sun gives us cancer.
Actually, it's the seed oils in our American diet that are causing the cancer.
No, because we have found dinosaur fossils that have cancer. They predate humans. We have found we have
cancer
found
can't-
we found ancient humans that have existed before we had all our current diet, and they have cancer as well.
Yeah, but there's different types of cancer. What cancer is it's a dysfunctional cell. So when the cell is dysfunctioning, it's also actually what I want to say is cancer happens when your immune system fails to kill the cancer, because your body kills cancer every day. It's only when you have a malfunctioning immune system.
That's not what
And the
cancer
cells
is.
are not-
That's not what cancer is. But what causes cancer is that our cells are constantly mutating, and sometimes the mutations go bad, and the cancer, the cell mutation is horrible, and the body can't kill it, especially once the cell replicates. If the cell replicates, it can't be cured. So, like, that's just not true.
Well, like I said, there's different types of cancer. Like, yeah, cancer existed before, but like I said, it's when the body's malfunctioning. It's not the sun's fault.
It's not what's fault?
Cancer is not the sun's fault.
It is the sun's fault. The universe created a sun that gives us skin cancer.
No, that was just a way to sell, suntan lotion, all that stuff, and those things also contain
That's
toxic
not true.
toxic
That's not true.
chemicals.
We found humans with skin cancer before suntan lotion.
Yeah, but I do think that the strength of your immune system also plays a factor.
Are
So we
you
have
really-
a. Oh, go ahead.
Are you really positing the fact you're saying that skin cancer didn't exist before we had, what is it, sunblock?
No, I think sunblock increases your chances of getting skin cancer.
That's not what I asked you, though. I asked you, are you saying that before we had sunblock, that skin cancer wasn't around?
I don't think it was as big as a problem as what it is now. And I think it was amplified by our poor diet, like processed sugars.
I didn't ask
seed
you about
oils.
whether or not it was amplified or not. I just wanted to know whether or not you think it was around before the existence of sunblock.
Yeah, it was probably around, yeah. But I don't think it wasn't like a major health problem. It was more like a I can't even say it.
What's your
all we
evidence for that?
need, all we need are
Anomaly.
cases
Yeah,
of
I'm trying to
it.
say anomaly. That's the word I was trying to say. Anomaly.
All we need though is if you're going to say that the universe is all loving, and this is the idea of not wanting to pluck a flower because you think it's beautiful, right? Then why is the sun as early as the 5th century BC? We have Hippocrates is writing about melanoma as early as the 5th.
Hippocrates.
Yeah, there we go. And we have mummies that were discovered with melanoma in the 4th century. Like, we've got plenty of writings about this existing. So why did the universe create in such a way where the sun, the UV, specifically the UV radiation coming from the sun, gives us cancer?
I don't think it's like a intentional thing. Like, I think when it comes to like, oh, why does this bad thing happen? I think the reasons for those things is because we need contrast, right? If we lived in a perfect utopia and everything was perfect, there would be no growth.
Xander, how do you distinguish the difference between something that's intentional versus it's being not intentional? How do you what mechanism do you use to determine that?
So I guess I would say is like, yeah, skin cancer can happen, but like, how many like, what's the percentage of that happening to somebody? Is it because it doesn't happen to everybody, right? So it's like saying like, so what I'm saying is what happens a majority of the time. A majority of the time is you're healthy, if you live a good lifestyle, and you're gonna live a long, healthy life. So there's other factors that go.
It's
go into what caused
irrelevant.
cancer.
Well, it's irrelevant because the question is, right? Because you say that when you read about these horrible things happening in the Bible, you know that it's not from God because God is all loving. And then you made the claim that God is the universe, that we've got this, look at this fine tuning that we have going on. I'm just saying that's not the case. There is no fine tuning in the universe because we have skin cancer. We have, before humans were even alive, do you know how many mass extinction events we had before humans were even a thing?
Well, I mean, we can't really speak on the history because, I mean, unless it's something that's like verifiable by science, like we can't really know the true history.
There
So,
have been we have 5 known major mass extinction events.
yeah, but what span of time is this?
This is over the past 550 million years, and they're identifiable due to the fossil record.
Yeah, 550 million years. That's a long ass time, dude.
Yeah, but
That's a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah, but this is flying in the face of you making the claim that when not historical, because I don't believe the Bible is necessarily historical, but when religious texts say that anything bad that happens is clearly man-written, it's man-made, and you believe that God is the universe is God, right? Then the question comes in, if this God is all loving as you stated, why did this God, and you try to invoke fine-tuning, why was the universe fine-tuned in such a way that there were 5 major mass extinction events before humans even existed?
I mean, that's just the way it happened. You know?
So can we agree then that your universe is not all loving?
Well, I think the universe created the infrastructure and it just allowed things to play out the way
Okay.
that they're according to those parameters.
Then-
It's kind of like if I had like a simulator, right? Right. There's code in the game, but then you're say your source, you're observing things as they're happening.
Well, the
Xander,
issue
can I?
that-
I'm-
Go ahead.
I just want to give you two questions, Xander. The first one is just for clarity's sake here. And I think we need to do this more often. Can you define what you mean by the universe is all loving?
Like when you feel pure love, I think that is what God feels like. Like that.
I
That's
don't-
being connected to source.
I don't think that's a good definition because you're using the word in the definition that I asked you.
Well, okay, so that's why I want to preface this. Like, we'll keep talking about this, but when I said I'm a pragmatic theist, right? It's just like at the end of the day, right? You still have responsibilities, right, to your friends, your family, your job, or whatever. You still have things that you need to do. These conversations are really fun to have. And they're good to have. They're healthy to have. But at the end of the day, I think the end justifies the means. Like, to me, it's just like, I don't care if someone's a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew.
Xander, I'm just waiting for the definition. I don't know why you're giving us the word salad.
Yeah, hold on real quick. Hanji, what kind of salad dressing do you like? Hanji might be busy. What kind of salad dressing do you like?
Just give me the classical ranch, man.
All right, because this word salad needs some ranch. I'm going to go grab me some Italian. Chat on both YouTube and TikTok. In the chat, put what kind of ranch you like, or what kind of salad dressing you like, so we can get some dressing for this.
I'm getting to the point. The point I'm trying to make is, whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter as long as you're a good person. I think that's what matters.
But that's not even remotely close to what I asked you. I asked you, like, what is your definition of all loving? How do you define that?
Well, if you created something, like if you gave birth to something and you had the unconditional love for it, that's how I would explain what the universe feels like.
Man, do you like croutons?
That makes sense?
You like croutons on your salad?
I do like croutons. I do like croutons. So yeah, so the issue that we're running into is that I think you don't like the idea of trying to argue the problem of evil found in the Bible. I don't think you like to do that. And I don't think you've ever been presented with the natural problem of evil. Well, and that's fair, but I feel like you're still not able to answer. Like, for example, do you have kids?
No.
Do you have parents, siblings?
Yeah.
Now, would you ever intentionally cause harm to your family?
Obviously not.
And why not? Is it because you love them?
I mean, that's part of it. That's just. I think killing people is bad. Like hurting people is bad.
Yeah, yeah. And you stated
objective moralism. It's just not good. Yeah.
Yeah, and you stated that when bad things happen, you know that that's not God. You know that that's how you know that man wrote the scriptures. Correct?
What I was talking about is when I hear people talk about, oh, God's bad because he said this in the Bible, or he said this in the Quran.
Oh, we don't talk about what God says. We talk about actions that God commands. We talk about things that actually happen because of what God said or did. But the issue that we're running into is, like for example, I'm an atheist, and the world that we live in, the fact that we as humans, are horrible to each other, we don't care about each other, I think, is what we would expect in a naturalistic world. Slavery is horrible, it's horrid, but because humans are horrible to each other, we would expect slavery in a naturalistic world because we're disgusting animals. But we shouldn't expect a god commanding slavery if a god is all loving. Likewise, if we have a universe that is all loving, and that's kind of gibberish to me, I don't know what an all loving universe is, but I would imagine that an all loving universe would not set out to cause 5 major extinction events and still be able to claim that it's all loving.
Well, it's all loving because it created the universe. It's not loving because it controls the universe.
It created the universe in such a way that it would cause 5 major extinction events. It would give living creatures that have that are able to receive UV radiation from stars melanoma.
Yeah, I think it's just a glass. I think it's just a matter of perspective, right? Because there's a lot of what would you say the opposite of an extinction is? Community thriving, right? So
yeah, sure.
My gosh.
Yeah, so if we think of how big the universe is and like the probability of other civilizations, there's a very high probability that there's other civilizations that have not gone extinct and they're thriving and they're expanding into other planets, yada yada.
Oh, but
it's all just
hold on.
perspective.
But the issue with this is we also experience, right? We also experience black holes, like stars turning into black holes. Like these are things that we see. We see, as a matter of fact, like and for those who don't know, one of the models for where the moon came from is that while the Earth was forming, the Earth was actually impacted by something, and that's where the moon came from. And that's why when we like look at the moon, we see that the moon has the exact same minerals and stuff that's found on Earth because the moon was once part of the Earth. But the Earth had not quite yet gone into its solid state. So as the Earth was starting to spin, it was able to kind of somewhat heal itself. But we see this happening throughout the universe as well, right? It's not unique to us. And I just don't think this is indicative of like an all-loving universe. I think you cannot have extinction events and love being utilized in the same sentence. I think that's goofy. I think that's crazy talk.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just looking at the glass half empty, I think. There's good things that come out of bad things. Like if there weren't those extinctions, we probably wouldn't be here.
What's a good thing that can come out of a woman being raped?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, besides a baby, nothing really.
Yes, Mr. E. Mr. E, 100%. Go watch my videos on TikTok and on YouTube. The moon is a spaceship, apparently.
So he said a baby. You said a baby is the good thing that can come out of a woman being raped?
I mean, that's the only possible good thing that could come out of it, but like another life. But obviously, it's still an awful thing. I'm not trying to say that awful thing should happen. It's just, we have to be practical. When things happen, we need to focus on what we can control, and find a way to move forward.
Well, we're not talking about what we can control. We're talking about the universe being God and causing a world in which 5 major extinction events happening. We get skin cancer from UV rays. We live in a world in which apparently the only good thing that comes from grape is children, which I would disagree with. I think that if there was a loving God, that children would never be a byproduct of grape. In fact, I would say that God would not give us a desire to want to grape other people. That's just me, though.
No, yeah, I get where you're coming from. Like I said, I think God created the infrastructure for the universe to happen, but it does not control what happens.
Say that again?
God created the infrastructure for the universe to happen, but it does not control every mind. It does not control what happens.
Well, then you just need to explain what all loving is, because the God created an infrastructure that caused 5 major extinction events to occur.
Well, I'm just describing my subjective, right? It's not something you need to believe.
And we're not saying that you're telling us you need to believe this. When you use certain terminology and we ask you to define the terms, you need to be able to do that in order for us to have I would say, a productive dialogue. If you're not able to define terms, it's going to be hard for us to really be able to like get down to the nitty gritty of these things. And so what you're doing is you're giving us piss poor definition. You're not even defining it. Like I'm asking you, like, okay, tell me what happy is, and you're like, well, it's my mom bought me a salad the other day, and it's full of ranch dressing, and praise God. That's kind of what you sound like right now. Like you're not really giving us any substance, and that's just a problem here. And I don't know how much further we can go with this guest, Cyber, but I'm just a little lost here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go ahead and drop you down. I don't think I'm convinced. Knight, are you convinced that the universe God is not a monster?
It's just a conversation. I'm not trying to convince anybody about anything.
I'm not convinced, and I'm not even convinced you truly know what you're talking about. And I don't want to come off as like an arrogant prick, but it just sounds like you don't even know what you're talking about. It sounds like you picked up a book from the library and you were like, "Ooh, look, God is the universe. Let me read one chapter. Let me come on some random atheist panel and just share what I learned from a book." Like you don't actually seem to have a solid grounding in your beliefs, and like that's fine. Like just keep educating yourself, man. But if you're gonna come up here and try to explain your God to us, like at least have a decent understanding of how to have a productive dialogue.
Yeah, I respect that. I'm gonna try to refine my my definitions better.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, you have a good evening. Thank you for coming up.
Yep.
All right, Nardo, how old are you?
Sorry, I'm 23.
All right. Are you going to give me a better argument, or is it going to be a short-lived debate?
I don't even know what individual said. I just joined.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, so why is God a sick monster?
How is he a monster in your eyes?
Yeah, Knight, what do you want to run with on this one with God? Well, first of all, do you believe in the Abrahamic God?
Yeah, I believe in the Christian God of the Bible.
Okay.
I want to go to Isaiah 13.
Isaiah 13. Let's go.
Let me see. Dun, 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 dun. And you could just do like, let's see. You could do verse 16, and I mean the context is obviously important, but we know this is a judgment against Babylon from God. But verse 16 is what I want to focus on.
Yep, we'll go there. We'll get this opened up. So we're here with Isaiah 13, and we'll start with verse 14. So what we have is where, starting here, it's a proclamation against Babylon, an oracle concerning Babylon that Isaiah, son of Amos, saw. So he's receiving this proclamation, and as you know, Babylon enslaved the Jewish people, the Israelites, and as a matter of fact, it was once they left Babylon is when we start seeing the term Jewish like pop up. And this is kind of like what their punishment should be, their proclamation. And in verse 16, it states, "Their infants will be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their house will be plundered, and their wives raped."
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead, Cyber. Go ahead.
oh no, this is your argument. I'll let you run with it. I am going to go use the restroom real quick. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, so Nardo, is that a good thing for infants to be dashed to pieces and for women to be raped?
No, I'd say it's pretty harsh.
Okay. And do you know who's causing this to happen?
Well, God, obviously. In
Yeah,
this.
okay. Cool. So that's why we believe God is a sick monster, because he's causing things like this to happen. And so this is why we're here talking to you about it.
But is there a reason why he's causing these things to happen to these individuals? Is he doing it for no reason at all?
Sin, they committed sin.
Okay.
Yeah, what did the infants do? What did the infants do?
Okay, but point being, right, I would say a monster. I wouldn't label him as a monster. I don't think a monster is someone who does cruel things, unjustified. But by this standard, I would say you guys are putting your own how can I say? It's more opinions, your opinions on how you feel.
So what's your justification for harming infants? I'm sorry, infants. Because you said that there was a justification. So what's the justification for harming an infant?
It's not really my justification. It's God obviously deeming it as a fit punishment for the people who sinned.
Well, I'm going to ask you a quick question. I'm going to ask this to chat, and we'll ask this to the panel as well. Chat, do you think that it is ever justified to punish, and we'll just go check this, infants for things that are beyond their control? So both YouTube and TikTok, let's give that a yes or no. Knight and Hanji, let's get your answers on that. I'm going to say no, and now I'm going to go use the restroom.
Hell no.
Okay. And now, can I have... Is there anyone in here who is...
Hold on. I believe host asked us to answer something, and my answer is no.
Okay. Now, is there an opinion from anyone who is perfect that has a say? Because I'm pretty sure no one in here...
Yeah, right here. I just said it. No.
Yeah.
My point being, no one in here is all-knowing and is perfect enough to how can I say, give an opinion onto how should be treated.
Why does someone need to be perfect in order for us to come to a conclusion that it's never right to harm innocent children?
No, because I'm talking about...
Because they have a sick brain. They don't know how to comprehend reality, and they're demonic in their own right. You know, it's funny how they constantly blame the devil, but look at how they're thinking. Look at how they're reacting to certain things when we give them answers. Who's the real devil here? It's clearly the believers.
Again, what I'm saying is, who are you guys to determine what is fit?
I am able to determine because I do not follow your God, who is a war deity, by the way, if you actually read your book.
No, but I'm saying, why should your opinion, what does your opinion mean? Like,
Our opinion matters because we're not sick fucks like you and your God that we have to take out and diminish innocence because of our fuck-ups. That's who we are. We're actually human.
Correct. And we're simply stating that it's always wrong to harm an infant. Can you say the same thing, Nardo?
Again, in biblical context, how can I ever disagree with God on his actions?
Okay, so then it's a good thing for infants to be dashed to pieces. right?
In general, I wouldn't say so. When it comes to biblical punishment, obviously, my God deemed it as a suitable punishment.
Well,
So I
let me
agree with
ask you a quick question. So, in your worldview, it is just, it is the right thing because God commanded it, correct?
everything God does to me is just.
Everything,
Yeah.
right? So let's say God, I'm giving you a hypothetical, right? And God, you know it's God in this hypothetical, and God comes to you, and do you have children? Do you have children by any chance?
No.
No. Do you have any younger siblings?
Good, keep it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a young sibling.
Do you have any nieces and nephews?
Yeah. Yeah. I do.
All right. Do you have any nieces or nephews that are under, say, the age of 10? I don't want an actual age, but do you have any that are like under? So let's say God came to you and you knew it was God. You knew it was God, and God said, "Hey, I need you to take your niece or nephew, and I need you to go sacrifice him to me." Would you do it?
Me personally, no.
Why not?
I don't think I have enough heart or discipline to do such an act. If God would have commanded me to do so, I don't.
You would place your judgment before God's judgment, right?
I mean, when you say your judgment, when you say my own free will
Yeah, yeah.
not do
Your
something.
mind, your thoughts, your opinions, etc. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I use my free will to not.
Yeah, so where we're at though is we're able to use likewise our free will and take a look at this scripture and be like, this is horrible. We shouldn't do this. This is horrible. This is horrible, God. We can pass the exact same kind of a thought process that you would with you not being able to carry out the word of God as well.
Okay, but the issue is, right, you guys can pass your opinion on how you feel, if you feel like it's unjustified, right? But I don't think, again, no human on earth can perfectly dash out how someone should be judged.
Nardo, if you're going to claim there's a justification for these atrocities, you're going to have to give us the explanation. Like what is the justification, and how do you know that there is one? You can't just say, "Oh, God's ways are higher than ours." That doesn't really get us anywhere. Like, what is the justification for unaliving an infant?
Well, it's not just specifically unaliving an infant. I'm saying everything.
No, Nardo, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about everything right now. We're talking about this particular case with an infant. If there is a justification that none of us can see, what is the justification? What is, like, just give me like a clear understanding here.
Well, you're talking in biblical context in this verse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was for sin.
It was for. Do you know what's going on in this story?
Yeah, I'm aware of the story, but my point being is this wasn't all for nothing. You guys are making out like all this was for no reason whatsoever. If whatever the reason may be, even if you guys don't.
Most of it was for no reason. God just did it because he felt superior to his quote unquote creation.
But again, just because no matter how
as a matter of fact, let's read on a little bit further, right? So we're talking about where he's going to have the Medes, right? So these are the proto Persians. The Medes are going to go against Babylon. Their bows will slaughter young men. They will have no mercy on the fruit of the womb, and their eyes will not pity children. So you mentioned free will. It sounds like the Medes aren't going to have any free will. This is God dishing out punishment against Babylon for what they did to the Israelites, right? And it looks like God's going to be taking away some free will of the Medes here, and is going to cause the Medes to do this horrific act where the Medes won't even care about children. infants, women being raped, and the fruits of the womb. Again,
Okay.
infants. The Medes aren't going to care.
And watch this. I'm gonna show you how your logic is flawed. And I'm gonna give you a perfect example.
Okay.
Let's say you're a warrior, right? You're in an army, right? Your opposition came to your town, unalived multiple women and children, and raped women and children, and what's not. Just do horrific things, right? Now, what would
Wait, that's not what happened here. Hold on, that's not what happened here.
That's not what I'm saying.
Hold on, that's not analogous to this. Hold on, that's not analogous to this.
That's not.
No, you gotta keep it
point.
analogous. You gotta keep it analogous.
If you're gonna draw
I'm showing you how in
story-
some instances, right?
Nardo, stop. I don't care if I'm in a war and I come from a war state. The moment I see my fellow soldiers harming innocents in any way, shape, or form, their heads would be on a fucking spear.
Right.
So well, that's not my point, though. You guys are missing my point. It's just
Well, you gotta keep it
You don't care about your
analogous.
point. You're not,
yes.
you're not perfect.
Again, if you let me finish, then maybe you will see the relevancy. Now I'm saying, what would you expect to be done if you was in the position of that individual?
So I can actually tell a story about this, right? So I was in the Marine Corps. I served in Iraq, and we had a case where we had a motor T convo that went out. They got hit by an IED. I was on quick response force, and we were trying to get over there. We didn't get there in time, and by time we got there, one of the women had tried to go into shelter, ended up getting raped in there, and we found out who did it. We found the people that did it. Do you know what we didn't do? Unalive them. Know what we didn't do? Unalive infants and children in the immediate area. We didn't unalive them. The people that committed the crime, they were taken in, and we didn't even unalive them. They were taken in, they were arrested, and they were turned over.
That's totally irrelevant to you. You didn't even answer my question. What would you do if you was a soldier in the predicament I gave?
He literally just did because
I
he
just
was
answered
supposed to be
it.
a fucking soldier.
No,
But
he
you're
gave
not
a totally
listening?
different that was a totally different example.
No, it wasn't a different example. He literally took your shit verbatim with his war history, being in war, and proved a fucking point that even you nor your deity can fucking grasp.
No,
That
because
sounds like a personal
one.
issue.
He only mentioned one individual. I'm saying you're a soldier, and your people, the people in your town, everyone majority, they were raped, unalived, and wiped, and the children were wiped, right, by your opposition. And you was a soldier in that case. What would you expect to be done to the opposition who did this to
I
your
would not
people?
unalive. I can definitively say that I would not unalive infant children. I would not participate in or allow the raping of innocent women. That wouldn't be allowed. And let me rephrase that, because that sounds bad. There wouldn't be raping of any women. When I say innocent women, that sounds bad. There wouldn't be raping of any women. That wouldn't be allowed.
So you're putting yourself in the shoes of
Nardo,
let me respond to him.
Hold on, I want to add on to what he said. This is weird. It's almost like you're implying that just because these people did it, they also deserve the same exact treatment. Like, is that really the position you want to hold on to right now?
No,
that sounds crazy.
The thing is, this isn't even my position. I'm just showing you example where, in some cases, for some, right, it would seem justified depending on what happened. But obviously, in your case, you're saying, well, I wouldn't do this and do that. But respectfully, well, you're not obviously being realistic.
We get it. You're
I have. I've been
justifying
faced with I've been faced with a similar position, and it's a position that my squad could have got away with. My squad could have, because at the time in Iraq, the U.S. military could get away with pretty much anything, and we didn't, because we saw that it was wrong. It's horrible, right? But you're still not answering the question. You're trying to burden shift, and I accepted the burden there for a little bit. You didn't like the answer, so now I'm going to put the burden back on you where it belongs, right? Why is God taking away the free will of the Medes to cause them to commit these heinous crimes against the Babylonians?
Well, if he's okay, so for one, right? This wasn't for no reason. This is again, this is an act of, this is, how can I say, what's the word I'm looking for here? This is a reaction. All this is a reaction. That's all.
Yeah,
it
why
is.
is
It's
God?
not- it's
Hold
not-
on. Why is God? Hold on. You're not answering the question, so I'll ask it for a third time. Why is God, for a reaction, causing infants, children, and women who have no decision-making power? They don't make decisions in these, to be punished. Why is that happening to them?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say it's an eye for an eye. Pretty much is what happened in this case.
That's exactly what I said earlier. That's what you said.
Yeah.
That they did it to other people, so they deserve it as well. Like,
I mean, to other people. Well, I mean, other people would say this is fair. You guys may not.
So then, if your wife was raped, for example, then the person who raped your wife, their wife needs to be raped according to your point of view, because
That's not my point of view, though.
It's an eye for an eye, man.
That is your point of view. You just stated it.
No, I'm saying how for some people this may seem fair.
No.
and
This is
justified.
your worldview. This is your worldview.
But this isn't my worldview, though. This is I'm only.
No, well, if this
I'm
isn't
only
your
on the side.
worldview, all right. Now, what I'm saying then, I want you to then tell me your worldview. Anything you say from here on out is your worldview. I'm not going to let you be slimy and a scumbag and say something and then be like, oh, but that's not my worldview. I believe it is your worldview, and I think you realize how scummy it sounds that you're a scumbag. So anything you say from here on out is your point of view. So in your worldview, why is God okay with this? Why is God causing this?
Well, in my worldview, again, as a Bible believing Christian, God, He's all knowing. He obviously knows what is the best way He should deal with a situation like this, and that's what He obviously chose. But in my modern worldview, right, me as a person today, I wouldn't say an eye for an eye. I would turn the other cheek.
So hold
That's how I
on
would
real quick. So
react to
when
things.
you tried to say that's not my worldview, that's other people's worldview, you lied.
That's not, no.
You did.
No, again.
Stay away from women and children, you putz.
Yeah. Don't have kids. Stay away from your nieces and nephews. Man.
There's the FBI. Open up. Bum, 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 bum.
All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and bring Dawn up.
Hey, yo, Dawn.
Don, can we have your age for TikTok TOS, please?
Yeah, it's like 57.
Okay, so like we believe God is a sick monster. Can you prove us wrong?
Yep. And hold on real quick.
Yeah, I'm extra sure.
Yeah,
Go
hold on
ahead.
real quick. I just got a $10 super chat from Jazz Hands saying God doesn't want evil things to happen to women or children. If humans were not capable... Hold on. Gotta get that brought up. If humans were not capable of doing evil things, there would be no free will. You can choose good or evil. The issue with this, Jazz Hands, I appreciate the $10. The issue I see with this, though, is that these are things that, according to Scripture, God directly commands. God commands these things to happen. And after this guess, we'll go ahead and go into some of those. But I appreciate the $10 super chat. All right, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, word. So I think it probably boils down to either like it's God who's bad or the people who are representing God are, I don't know, I guess that's their viewpoint. I don't really believe that there is a God. I think that it's more complicated than like just some being floating around in outer space or whatever. But Yeah, no, looking at the Bible specifically, it's pretty easy to see that God is not like a good, loving God. Especially in the Old Testament, it's kind of a testament of fear. The New Testament with Jesus, like that doesn't make sense either. It's moral and ethical. I don't disagree with what he said, but he did say that things were going to happen that didn't happen, and that there would be proof where, religion would essentially continue to be a experience-based religion, not a faith-based one like we have today.
So to be clear, are you a theist or an atheist?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it an atheist, but I guess
All right, we are only looking for debates on theists, so we're gonna go ahead. So we're gonna go ahead and get H brought up.
Hello, guys.
Hello, can we have your age for TikTok TOS, please?
A big pardon?
Can we have your age for TikTok TOS, please?
Oh, yeah, I'm over 30.
We believe God is a sick monster. Can you prove us wrong?
It depends on, which character you're talking about, because there are so many people that believe in different gods at the end of the day.
What deity do you believe in?
I do believe in the Abrahamic, God. At the end of the day.
Oh, so you just answered it for us then. Okay.
Is it the Christian God or the Muslim God? Islam.
The Muslim God.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
But just a disclaimer at the end of the day, yeah. Just a disclaimer at the end of the day.
Do you believe
when you
that?
ask me, proof.
Well, so my question is,
let me just say one thing. Yeah, I think we're not hearing each other. I think am I on delay or something? I think.
No, I was just going to have a quick question for you. Why do you believe in the Quran when it says that we should emulate the Prophet Muhammad?
Yeah, this is where I was trying to get to you. Are you trying to make me defend Muhammad, or are you trying to make me defend God? Because I do believe
yes or no
question. That's a
yes or no.
I thought it was a yes or no question, man. I don't know.
I do believe it. Yeah, of course I do believe in it. I do believe in it. But when you go to Muhammad, okay, I can understand. If you want me to defend Muhammad, that's one question. But if, as the question says on your screen, it says that God is a sick monster, prove me wrong at the end of the day. And I came for that question alone. If you want another question, which is defend Muhammad, then I can understand that.
Yeah, does the Quran also say though that like if Muhammad is like a false prophet, then we don't need to follow the Quran? Because that's where I would go with this is.
No, I do believe in yeah.
Okay, so my question is.
Yeah, I do believe in Muhammad. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you hold to the hadiths? Do you follow the hadiths?
I do hold into the hadiths, but with the hadiths, they need rigorous. Yeah. I do. Yeah. I'm a hadith believer at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but
why?
When just if I can just finish my trailer thought with the hadiths, I don't have the references at the moment with me, but with the Quran, I have all of my references. They're right in front of me at the end of the day. Because that's the scripture of God at the end of the day. But
that's fine.
Yeah, because with the hadiths, there are weak ones, and I cannot verify them.
All right, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and mute you because you're gish galloping right now. So my question is, with the Prophet Muhammad, police be upon him, if I'm going to emulate him, and we do have evidence in Bukhari, is it the case that I need to be marrying 6-year-old girls, consummating the marriage at age 9, and then playing dolls with them? Send you an invite to unmute.
It's a wonderful question, H. I hope you have a wonderful answer for us.
Am I on unmute?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you're unmuted.
Oh, okay. I honestly knew as soon as I came in here, that's the first question that you're gonna attack. But I can understand that. I can understand where you come from at the end of the day, because that's the question that comes comes up the most times anyway. But anyways, I do believe that there were let's not be presentism. This idea of only today's morals apply to humanity throughout the world, throughout the centuries. I don't.
What is my question, and how does this answer it?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the answer.
Parenthesis.
So what does this have to do with the price of matzah in Judea?
I think I'm gonna steal someone's comment. He's doing the Muslim shuffle right now.
Yes.
The Muslim shuffle is diabolical.
Okay, do you want me to answer, or are you gonna machine gun tactic me?
We're waiting for you to answer the question, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to answer the question.
Well, you're not.
Anyways, can I?
You can. Go ahead. We're going to cut you off if you don't answer the same question again. Go ahead.
No, I am answering the actual question. And the answer to that question is, I don't have any problem with people marrying young, in history. It happened throughout history. Wow. It happened. I do have. I'm not apologetic about it. I'm not apologizing for anything that happened in the past or anything. If you have a problem with Muhammad, that's one thing. But if you have a problem with God, the question I came to answer was: is God a monster? Prove me wrong.
Well, the issue the issue is that if God selected a prophet who committed this disgusting and heinous act, which I think means that God supports said act, should we then, or Allah at least knew that he was going to commit this act, and you believe that Muhammad is a role model and that we should emulate him, why would God select such a horrible person to be his mouthpiece?
My answer to that question is, you have this idea of today's morals apply to throughout history. I don't hold those. I don't hold those beliefs. My idea of a marriage is, if the person is old enough to get married, regardless of if they pass the age of puberty, I can't see anything wrong with that at the end of the day.
Wait, even in today's society?
Today's society, because of laws, there are. Give me one second. Today's laws. Are you talking about the Mexican law? Are you talking about the Spanish law, which has so many different? There are in Mexico. You can. I'm 100% sure you can marry 12-year-olds in Mexico.
Drizzy H, certified lover boy, certified whatever. Listen, I'm not talking about the law. I'm asking. You mentioned puberty, right? You said that they reached a certain age of puberty. So do you hold that same standard for people today? If a young woman reaches the age of puberty, are you saying that you have no problem with her marrying someone at a young age? Is that what you're saying, H? Yes or no?
And most girls hit puberty as old as 7 years old. As young, excuse me. So you're saying that's okay?
Yeah. H, please unmute your microphone, because I swear to the God you believe in, I will smack you down with my... Never mind. Anyways, just answer the question.
It's worth the Aries for you. He doesn't like grape apologists or grapists. H, you can unmute. I'll ask it again before he unmutes. Do you think it's okay to marry a girl as young as 7 years old if she starts her period because she is considered a quote-unquote adult?
In today's, I do. Can I answer the question?
No, answer the question. You didn't give an answer.
Yeah.
Question after
But you're not letting me answer. You're not letting me answer.
Question, stop crying.
Whenever I answer, you
just
guys jump in.
answer.
So you need to answer.
H, just answer the
I knew
question.
exactly where this is going. I knew exactly where
Holy
this is going.
fuck.
I'm gonna leave now, bro. Peace anyway,
Okay.
guys.
Yeah, you
Okay, we'll
can
take
run
your
away, man.
concession. That's your yes. Thank you. Thank you for showing
No,
us
it's
why
not. But
Islam
you
is
guys
a
are
piece of shit.
machine gun tacticing me. Oh, I speak.
We're not
all
machine
of
gun
you speak at the same
tacticing
time,
you.
so
You're not answering. You're not
honestly, you are machine
answering
gun
the question.
I'm speaking to I'm speaking to three different people at the same time. Whenever I try to answer. Anyway, anyways, I kind of knew that you guys would do this anyway. So peace anyway, guys.
All right, goodbye.
Thank you for proving to us that Muslim must be sent to jail, pedophilia religion, is disgusting. And Allah is just as disgusting. Well done, guys.
He literally admitted that. He said that it would be okay for today. That's just, I don't even know how to fucking feel about that, man.
Yo,
I'm not surprised. Oh my goodness, Fetus, how old are you?
I'm turning 15, but please just let.
Nope.
All right, chat. You need to at least have your umbilical cord needs to be severed. The placenta needs to have been delivered, and you had to have been out of the child ward for at least 18 years before you can come up on TikTok.
Also, you would need to be able to tell us, like, if we ask you, like, you know, have you ever heard of the movie, I don't fucking know, Rush Hour 1 or something? You know what that is? We're just gonna know you're a fetus, okay? So.
I could quote that whole movie too.
Look, I'm just gonna say, there's some quotes, movie quotes that I'm gonna quote, and if you can't answer them, unless you're Jaren, I'm looking at you, Christ before Jesus. Unless you're Jaren, I expect you to get the reference. Jaren, there's reasons why Jaren wouldn't catch most of them, but hey, I am going to call it here for right now. I do need to get my partner back to her house. She's not feeling well, so I'm going to go drop her off. I will be back, and as soon as I get back, I will be right back on. So, I'll be back. So, Nigel, are you going to come back, or are you going to call it a night?
I'll come back, and if you want to have me up, I greatly appreciate that. I'll probably be sleepy though, so maybe I'd just be in the audience. We'll see.
Dale moreno, dale moreno, dale moreno, no pare moreno.
Yeah, Night Gamer. I need to go. My partner's not feeling well, so I do need to get her home. Come back though. Like I said, it should be within 30 minutes to 45 minutes, and I will be back. I do appreciate everybody hanging out tonight, even those who disagree. I do appreciate each and every one of you. Those on YouTube, thank you for hanging out. We had up to like 200 at one point. We've got 88 people on YouTube right now. We've got 91 on TikTok. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. And we'll call it here.
Thank you, Evan. Oh.
Log on